So what you trying to do, girl? Baby, come around me, don't be shy. You're my one desire, you can see it in my eyes. See, I'm not too sure what it is, girl, but I like it. Girl, I wanna be with you and show you a good time. Brown eyes, you don't lie, you're quite shy, but I don't mind. It's a good day, see the sun's out, baby, let's go. Baby, let's go on a holiday. Let's enjoy life from the sunset to the sunrise. Me, I can't lie, you are so fine, would you be mine? Enjoy life with me, babe. Life with me, babe. Girl, I know you work hard each day. Work hard each day. But I wanna help you take things easy. Take things easy. I can take care of us, believe me. Girl, believe me. I like you, girl. Let me excite you, girl. Cause I got a feeling I like you, girl. So what you trying to do, girl? I got a feeling I like you, girl. Let me excite you, girl. Cause I got a feeling I like you, girl. So what you trying to do, girl? Baby, come around me, don't be shy. You're my one desire, you can see it in my eyes. See, I'm not too sure what it is, girl, but I like it. Girl, I wanna be with you and show you a good time. Brown eyes, you don't lie, you're quite shy, but I don't mind. It's a good day, see the sun's out, baby, let's go. Baby, let's go on a holiday. Let's enjoy life from the sunset to the sunrise. Me, I can't lie, you are so fine, would you be mine?
Viens par là, touche-moi là, mais non, arrête pas, si, si, je l'aime comme ça. Touche-moi, aime-moi, adore-moi, embrasse-moi, baby, je l'aime comme ça. Dis-moi que tu m'aimes, prends-moi dans tes bras, vas-y, enlace-moi, vas-y, t'arrête pas. Viens par là, touche-moi là, mais non, arrête pas, si, si, je l'aime comme ça. Touche-moi, aime-moi, adore-moi, embrasse-moi, baby, je l'aime comme ça. Ma chérie m'a dit, alobi nangai, désir et à danger, bolingo yango, atana boy, akolimbate, akotikate, akobakisa, akopesa nyonso. Elle m'a dit, méfie-toi, les amours d'été, y'a rien de pire qu'un amour d'été. Sache que dans désir se cache rien d'autre que le danger. Viens par là, touche-moi là, mais non, arrête pas, si, si, je l'aime comme ça. Touche-moi, aime-moi, adore-moi, embrasse-moi, baby, je l'aime comme ça. Viens par là, touche-moi là, mais non, arrête pas, si, si, je l'aime comme ça. Touche-moi, aime-moi, adore-moi, embrasse-moi, baby, je l'aime comme ça.
Love is not enough, baby. Come to me, Molo. Love me or you hate me, know me. No mess with me, Mologo. NSC 250, Kumaloni Titi. Giuseppe Zanotti, in a Maserati. Hey, baby, easy. Fine boy like you, easy. You won't kiss somebody, follow sweet melody. Normally, oh, Ojojumo la ṣayé, oh, ah. Luckily, oh, mo lówó tí mo fẹ́ ná, ah. Me, I just want to be high, be high, be high. Me, I just want to be high, be high, be high. Me, I just want to be high. Luckily, oh, me, I just want to be high, be high, be high. Me, I just want to be high, be high, be high. Me, I just want to be high.
Hi there! Welcome to Meta Festival, the first ever 24-hour festival taking place in the metaverse. Get ready to meet 10,000 like-minded folks, representing digital leaders, Web3 pioneers, technologists, and creatives from all over the world. This is the start of our 3-hour show, broadcasted live from Metapolis, hosted by Tobias Cummins and Emma Santangelo from DAPT. Find the full lineup and other fun stuff on the Meta Festival website. And feel free to ask our speakers questions via the chat. Now, sit back, relax, while we showcase some of the Web3 work we did for some of our most epic clients.
I love it when you couscous. Love it when you couscous.
Love it when you couscous.
Couscous. Couscous. Couscous. Couscous. Couscous. Love it. 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 I love it when you couscous. Love it. 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 Love. I love it when you couscous. Love it. Love. I love it. Love. I love it. Love. I love it when you love it. Love. Love it. Love. I love it when you couscous. Love it. Love. I love it. Love. I love it. Love. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love. I love it when you couscous.
How about you, Asia, and the rest of the world? Sit back, relax, and enjoy the live studio broadcast. Here we go.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Meta Festival 2022, the biggest industry party in the metaverse. Get ready for 24 hours of inspiration around Web3 and its potential. During this APAC live stage session, we'll be joined by thought leaders, creatives, and pioneers in the space who will share their vision to push boundaries and create out-of-this-world digital experiences, new ways of connecting, as well as opportunities to reimagine how we do good. My name's Tobias Cummins, and I'm Business Development Director at DAPT. But before I tell you about the APAC program, I'd like to welcome my wonderful co-host, Emma Santangelo. Hi, Emma.
Hey Tobias, and hello to everybody in APAC. My name is Emma Santangelo, and I am the Strategy Director at DAPT. I'm really excited to be here today, and we cannot wait to welcome all of our panelists. We have a really great program for you all.
That's right, Emma. We're going to explore actually 5 topics that I'm sure will help our audience navigate the Web3 space and dive a little deeper into the opportunities and challenges of entering the metaverse for brands and organizations.
And we will be giving you the chance to ask our panelists some questions, so please leave them in the chat, and we will get to them at the end of each panel. We do have a busy program today, Tobias, so I think it's time to kick things off.
Right, let's do that. So let's move on to our first panel, Web3, Marketing's New Frontier, and let's roll the clip.
Welcome to the Web3 Marketing's New Frontier panel. Here you will hear from a group of brand leaders representing top-shelf brands already taking big steps in exploring what opportunities Web3 has to offer. From NFT to crypto to the metaverse, there's certainly a lot to be discovered. As we dig deeper during our discussion, feel free to drop your questions in the chat. Enjoy!
I am thrilled to welcome our first panel. Takayuki Suzuki, CEO at Meta Tokyo, Michael Patton, founder at The Culture Group, Ida Keimer, Strategic Business Development Manager at Journey, and Samir Pitawala, Head of Gaming for APAC at Google Cloud. How do you all?
How are you all doing?
Hello.
Hi.
Good afternoon.
Great.
Good morning.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, and good night, I guess, right? So thank you so much for joining us to explore the future of Web3 and the metaverse. To start off, I'd like to ask you all, where do you think we're at right now, and how far are we on this journey? And Ida, Michael, Samir, Takayuki, over to you. Don't all shout
Okay,
at
I think
once.
my name was first, so I'll just jump in right away.
Jump right in.
In my perspective, I really don't think that there is an end destination. So, when we speak about where we're at with the journey, I think it's more to think about an evolutionary process that will keep going. And it's more like we have the puzzle pieces. We have an idea, a vision, a dream, maybe, and we're starting to build, we're starting to figure out, but we really don't know where we are going. So for me, it's also, do we even know what we're going to be calling this, what we're building in 10 years from now?
I think that's a great point. And I think the goalposts keep moving. If you asked the creators of Web 1.0, in the early to mid 90s, what they were creating, I don't think they saw where we would be today. They may have had some vision of it, but they didn't see where the end game was. So I think that we're at 90% on the awareness and the communication scale, but we're probably only about 10% of the way there in terms of realizing the full potential of this. What's most important is people are experimenting, brands are creating, and there's an entire native creative community that has developed, not overnight, but I would say over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. And that's critically important to having a healthy foundation. So early days, but in a great spot.
Any other thoughts on
you
that?
want to go next?
Yeah, go for it.
So, I echo the thoughts on 90%, what Michael was saying, of the 90% communication there and 10% in terms of sort of execution. I believe that in terms of software tools, they're pretty much arrived. They've kind of been arriving for the last 20 years, but all the software stacks are there. The hardware, which is really where, we as users begin to interact with these worlds in full 3D or in some sort of augmented form, those haven't arrived yet totally. I think you can see a lot of effort into that happening, but it's not totally there in terms of hardware. But software-wise, I think that's the reason why developer ecosystems are being in the hope that once hardware comes, you can begin sort of a whole new era of spatial computing.
Okay, so for now, so not so many people in the brand and entertainment company are recognize its true potential, but it's buzzword, of course. But now I think that we are on the right track to seeing the right future on the metaverse of the Web3. But a point divides people who will be in or not the gaming experience. So when we look at the Gen Z, so metaverse experience is really natural for them. So I think for Japan, it is very Asian country, so many people are excited about it, but not organically experience them. So now we are really in experimental phase, but we are on the right track. But it also depends on the population pyramid of country by country for we seeing the kind of next generation innovation via Web3 and the metaverse.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, Takayuki, and actually brings me to my next question for Ida. You just spoke a bit about Japan, but in Asia Pacific in general, Ida, how would you say that the physical and virtual worlds are blurring, gaming, as Takayuki said, or beyond? What lessons can we learn and think about?
I'm going to speak mainly from a South Korean perspective, just to make that disclaimer. For me, it's a lot about understanding the adoption and the reasons for adoption of technologies. And where you look at South Korea, where it's both a governmental and a culture aspect of that. Smartphone penetration being extremely high, having all these networks working really well, going mobile very early because of that there is infrastructure for it. But then also having this culture aspect, as we're speaking about, like gaming, but also curiosity in people themselves being ready to adopt. And then I think there's another thing that creates this blurring, where I compare Europe and my experience in East Asia, that it's almost that in Europe there is a secular approach to technology. And in East Asia, in my experience, mainly Seoul, being an integral part of life, where using, for example, Instagram doesn't have to be something that takes you away and steals your attention from your physical social interaction, but it can add on to it.
Yeah, incredibly interesting, Ida. I think we're talking a lot about adoption and sort of the embracing of the tech. I'm wondering, Michael, how will Web3 and the metaverse help accelerate innovation and creativity for businesses in Asia Pacific? So the inverse, how will there be a shift from ownership to the creator? And what do you think is the potential of a creator-centric approach?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I think the first thing I would mention is where is the adoption coming from? And I'm here in Southeast Asia, in South Korea. As we look at our region here, Thailand, Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, there's a tremendous amount of Web3 and blockchain-enabled gaming. So I think the wallet adoption around those gamified properties is going to lead to all sorts of behavior that we normally wouldn't have had, because the folks playing those games traditionally would not go through the process setting up those wallets otherwise. So that is a huge on-ramp to future behavior, number one. Mm-hmm. And number two, with all the capital that's been deployed from a venture standpoint, we still haven't seen a lot of product come out on the gaming side. There's a tremendous amount of product that is yet to ship. So I think in the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to see a lot more there. In terms of kind of how it engages creators and how business will shift from company to creator, we don't have a 50 to 100 year history of mass media in Southeast Asia like you have in Europe or you have in North America. We have a very short history of free and open media, and most of that has been driven by creators themselves who have used platforms. And as those creators have access to the tools to develop their own economies around their community and around their fandom, I think that those creators are going to play a more impactful role in building brands, in marketing brands, and more importantly, in monetizing the economies that they've created around their attention and around their content. So I'm very bullish on that, and specifically in countries like Indonesia and the Philippines, where these are truly creator-centric content markets. You've got creators in these markets who are specific to those markets, and their primary form of engagement is YouTube. And they've got 20 or 30 million followers and subscribers on there. And all of that is being shared with YouTube. When we get to a place when they have direct monetization and direct engagement, and they have merchandise and ticketing and fan clubs and content distribution, all of which is blockchain enabled, or I would rather say token enabled, I think that we're going to see a really exciting future.
I think that is a great segue. Also, Michael, thank you for that. Really interesting. Into the next question, which was, Samir, we'd love your perspective as well. Michael spoke a lot about gaming as it relates to kind of ownership versus creator and monetization, but would love to hear your point of view as well in terms of kind of what we might be seeing in the gaming world, and also what learnings we can really apply to the metaverse as of now.
A lot of the components which are there in gaming are going to be on-ramps for developing in the metaverse. So if you look at the technical stack, it's not really different than the ask of developers when brands come to them saying, make us these immersive metaverses, or when you look at sort of retail clients or real estate clients entering that. So if you break it down a bit, when it comes down to components, it's really pretty much the same skill set that developers have in gaming, which is the ability to build these highly interactive but open world sort of immersive environments that can have deep visceral experiences. And if you scratch underneath that sort of creative statement, it really comes down to the tech components, right? The ability to build optimization, pixel streaming, the rigging, lighting, all of those components that go towards the skills you require to build these metaverses pretty much map very closely to the skills you require to build high quality, deeply immersive, massively multiplayer games. Except that the approach is sometimes different, right? You're not necessarily over there just to have gameplay mechanics there for the purpose of just for people coming together and playing something. It could just be them coming together and hanging out. So you're already seeing modes, whether it's in Fortnite or in Roblox, where it's humans co-experiencing things together as opposed to just playing a game together. And that bridge of designing for primarily audiences which want to play games, but using a lot of the components and design language of that and migrating it to being able to design these experiences is not a bridge too far from game developers to metaverse developers.
Amazing. Thanks for that, Samir. Takayuki, I actually had one for you. When you were speaking earlier, you started to go into a little bit about the nuances regarding Tokyo and Japan in particular. So my questions are, what are the regional challenges for Web3 and the metaverse in Tokyo? And why do you think we need to think about the metaverse holistically within that context?
That's a great question. So Japan is still behind its penetration, like low rate of the wallet adoption, and the tax legal framework is still unclear. But since beginning of this year, local NFT marketplaces are launching and are now gradually penetrating. And also, Japanese government set Web3 and NFT for our growth strategy entire country. So I look forward to see more easier legal framework and tax, and also the growth of the startups. And also, it is interesting that there are lots of Web2 metaverse platform by local players in Japan. So somehow, virtual experience is becoming popular, but there are some conflicts between Web2 metaverse community and Web3 metaverse community, such as NFT is too speculated or scam. However, in general, we have great IP character and the narratives based on the anime and the manga and the games. I think that would be the very powerful piece in the Web3 world.
Amazing.
And Michael, this next one's for you. I think we've already touched a bit upon some of the topics, but would love to get a bit of a deeper dive in terms of how you get people onto the on-ramp to Web3. What is sort of the strategy for getting some new audiences progressively into that world?
Well, there's really two sides of it. There's the consumer side, and I think there's nothing that attracts people more than compelling and creative opportunities to earn money, interact with one another, or play. And we've seen that, right? We've seen that through great NFT projects. We've seen that through gamified environments. We're seeing it in Southeast Asia through blockchain gaming. In terms of the world that we live in, and working with corporations, working with brands, working with IP owners, I think it really comes down to understand. Everybody would say, oh, you should start experimenting, and you should. But I think the first step is understanding your brand role. What role do you want to play in a consumer's life from a virtual standpoint? It doesn't mean the brand presence you want to have in a metaverse environment or a gamified environment. But if we look at the entire suite of Web3 assets and tools and potential services, what role do you want to play in a consumer's life in the next 12 months? And that's a fundamental question that a lot of marketers should be able to answer. And I don't know that they are able to answer that right now. When that question can be answered and there is a functional role for a brand, everything that develops out of it can be authentic and everything can be driven by that purpose. And right now, I think we're seeing, I would say 75 to 85% of the work that's being done is to really check the box and say, we're in, quote, the metaverse. But we don't really understand what that means for most of these advertisers. So I would say answering that question is the first step.
Awesome. I have to say, folks, this conversation already has been amazing. Thank you so much for all your thoughts. But Ida, I had another one for you. More focusing on impact, actually. What are your thoughts on building a creator-centered, diverse, and inclusive Web3 and metaverse? And how can we use this technology to find real-life solutions?
Yeah, I think you already know that this is one of my hard questions. For me, I think diversity and inclusion is so much more about identity and freedom of expression. Mm-hmm. I like to always remind myself that we only have 63% of the global population that has access to internet today. Mm-hmm. So when we look at that, these technologies could play a completely different role, right, than fashion and gaming. I like to think about how blockchain technologies, anything Web3, can change governance, security, identity, banking, especially for people who don't have access to these fundamental services, right? You can really change systems if you get it right. With technologies like Journeys, we could also enable education, since the Journey platform can be streamed. If you can stream YouTube, you can stream Journey, right? Mm-hmm. So that means with a very, very poor internet connection and just one screen, you can enable, for example, education. So those are the things that I really think we should think about more and experiment with much more than we are.
Couldn't agree more.
Samir, this one's for you. You know, I think back when the internet came out, however many years ago now, it really changed sort of the way that we interact and socialize and engage with one another fundamentally. And it seems like we're seeing that again with Web3 and the metaverse. We'd love to hear your perspective a bit on how the metaverse is actually shaping engagement and socialization. And maybe also your point of view on sort of what the potential would be for the metaverse to really promote communities and community building in real time.
Yeah, I think with every generation of technology, you have sort of a new way that people can interact with each other. You can look at sort of Web 1 with ICQ and MSN Messenger and a lot of those instant messaging apps which came out. And that kind of gave way to Web 2, where you had, companies which became platforms like Facebook. And now with the third version, which is truly sort of immersive, it's the closest. I think each version tends to get to a point where it tries to simulate reality and how we interact with people in our daily lives, because that's the most natural way that we as humans know. And also the most sort of deepest connections are formed because there's so much more language that you're able to demonstrate beyond just verbal language. It's through body language. And, that's the reason why avatars tend to be crafted in a person's view of, number one, the real self, and sometimes in a view of their fantastical self, of what they would like to be. And those are different dimensions that you get to express your personality and interact with people beyond the physical boundaries, which one of the panelists brought up about how, if you look at the behavior and socializing behavior of Gen Z, where a lot of the time that they spend in platforms like Roblox, whether it's post-school or whether it is to learn new activities together, or you see them, interacting in platforms like Fortnite and Minecraft. Those are good examples of probably proto-social worlds that will be built basis the behavior of a generation that was to come before this. Another example, which was probably less interactive, was probably a decade ago when YouTube burst onto a scene. It was, I think, about 2006 or 7 is once YouTube began to scale, and you formed these new communities which were formed around interest groups on video. But they didn't, sort of folks co-inhabited, but on the comment section. And now you have the activity feed in these products which have allowed these communities to form. But, interactions are still limited in a 2D world. You can't really go on adventures together inside of our platform, which is limited by one dimension. So I think these kind of newer platforms take a lot of that community building, which has always been a core tenet of what the internet was capable of doing, was the ability for you to connect with any like-minded folks globally. But, move it to a different order and a different realm when it comes to the closeness and the interaction you feel. And like I pointed out at the start of the conversation, that will only inch towards simulating the closest form of interaction we have, which is really interacting with folks in the real world. So those will continue to bridge closer and closer together.
Thank you so much for that, Samir. I don't mean to deduce from everything amazing that you said, but ICQ, you just brought me back for a moment there. I latched onto that one. Takayuki, for you, this question is a sort of broad question, but I'm curious to know because of the sort of nuances associated with the region and in Japan. But what do you think are the main opportunities for Web3 and the metaverse in the region?
Okay, so yeah, Japan is as you know, the island in the Far East. And we are seeing the declining in its population and by low birth rate. So we should explore global markets and the global new economy through metaverse and Web3. So now, recently, we are seeing lots of NFT projects. They are influenced by Japanese culture. And now we are really in successful cases like Japanese NFT projects. Making the big buzz in the global marketplace like OpenSea. So now we are really cultivating the global audiences, also the global economy through the NFT world based on our narratives, manga, anime. So I think that will be the new export of the entertainment, culture, and of course, brands and products for us. And for example, so there is the CGI character called the VTuber, who is the virtual character, singer or the actor through the YouTube. But they are really successful in Japanese domestic entertainment world. So the live festival, those CGI character draw the 20,000 people in the live festival. But so if they are really good at so the exporting through the metaverse and the Web3, so that will be the massive the economy through the ownership, co-ownership and audiences. So that is why I really embraced for the combining Web3 and the entertainment culture in Japan to go global.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. This has been so amazing so far. And I think we're actually already almost at final remarks. Maybe we have a few questions from the audience. But before we get to any of those, would love to hear just any kind of final recommendations, really, for brands or businesses who really want to become future-proof, thinking about Web3, thinking about the metaverse, and then also maybe even recommendations for beginners who really want to get involved in the space. Would love to hear. Maybe Michael, we'll start with you if that's okay. I think you spoke about purpose before. Brands really having purpose might be a good segue. Oh, I think you're muted, Michael.
Michael, we can't hear you.
Thanks for that. I think it's a great question. And really the first thing that a brand should do is put together a team of people who are capable of thinking differently than the core business. That is critically important. The core business is not going to be able to look 1, 2, 5 years into the future. The core business looks at tomorrow. And those people need to be given the freedom to create, and they need to be given a budget with which to do that. After going about doing that, I think that those folks really, again, need to come back to what is the role that we can play and what is something that we can execute in the next year against that role. It's that simple. You know, this is an evolving space. It's constantly developing. I don't think that everything is going to be solved in a strategy presentation or through creative execution. What matters is getting started and then positioning yourself to be successful based upon how things change, based upon what you learn, and more importantly, just having the flexibility to make those changes. Sitting within traditional marketing organization, I just really don't think is the right way to approach Web3. And in terms of consumers, if anybody's listening, if you're a marketing executive, you know, a business owner, an influential person within a corporate structure, and you don't have a blockchain wallet on your phone, you're not qualified to have the conversation within your own company. That is the basic, most simple thing that you can do to demonstrate your interest in the space, your knowledge of the space, or more importantly, your willingness. And it would be like having a head of digital who doesn't do digital banking. So I'd recommend people to get themselves equipped with the tools and start.
Wonderful, thank you. Anyone else? Ida, any thoughts?
Yeah, I really like what Michael was saying, especially about the team. I very often experience, I have conversations with innovation teams, etc., in large corporates, and they ask me for help to convince their management. So definitely to change that. And then really knowing where the brand is when you start experimenting and knowing where the technology is. So meeting consumers or your customers with the technology that they already have. Those are the recommendations that I think I would have.
Wonderful. Takayuki or Samir, anything to add? Otherwise, I think we have
the
time
only
for one.
incremental point to what Michael and Ida have said, I think, is we're still at the place where a lot of brands are stating that they want to be a part of the metaverse, but they don't really know what is the use case going to look like. Why should they be there? And what's the long-term roadmap to keep these audiences engaged? And number one, should they be doing their own? Should they be doing and being a part of someone else's and go where the audiences are? I think it's a lot like sort of when any new technology comes in, people jump in. Even when sort of Web 1 came, everybody wanted a website, which kind of, they didn't quite know what to do with it, but it ended up being a brochure website just because they wanted to have a presence. And later on, the next generation of applications came, which became truly native to the medium and the form factor. I think we're still pretty much in the former and not the latter. But as time moves on, and it's part of that evolutionary process of people entering, trying to figure it out, and hopefully some products heading to product market fit after that.
Okay, so I would like to just mention the aspect of the culture. So we are already seeing the great new culture in the building and the avatar and experience in the metaverse and also the Web3. So the people, so we have a chance to get in the first place or the early place in those new culture. And also, of course, obviously, the brand company should adapt into the upcoming years. So I think this is the point where I would like to recommend to the brands and the people to jump in those Web3 and the metaverse. It's already happening.
Amazing. Well, truly, thank you all so much for these wonderful insights. I think we have maybe time for just one question quite briefly. I'm going to actually ask my amazing crew to just scroll a little bit so I can see the full question, if that's all right. So very briefly,
I think it was around the challenges, maybe some of the biggest challenges, or if there is one biggest challenge or hurdle to overcome, really, what would that be for the metaverse, for a brand, a business, a person, any kind of buy-in, I suppose, at that level, maybe the biggest hurdle that we are facing? Or maybe there aren't any.
Yeah, I would say willingness is the biggest challenge. Knowledge isn't a challenge anymore. There's lots of knowledge out there. There are a lot of people who aren't willing because they don't have the creativity or they don't have maybe the risk appetite to engage in something where they don't have all the answers. And if we're in a new experimental space, the answers aren't always available.
fair enough.
Makes sense. All right, guys, I think we're at time. It was really such a pleasure to have you all. Thank you very much for kicking us off on the right foot. Really enjoyable and thoughtful conversation. So thank you to Takayuki, Michael, Ida, and Samir. Have a great rest of the day and look forward to seeing what you do in the space next.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much.
Bye.
Welcome to the On Trend Next Gen Pop Culture panel. Learn the tips from a group of experts who know firsthand how, in an increasingly digital world, culture happens online. And with Web3 revolutionizing digital, it's clear it will impact culture as well. Let's dive in. Feel free to drop any questions you have during the discussion in the chat.
The metaverse has opened up new opportunities for artists and content creators, and this next panel will be exploring how pop culture is being redefined by Web3. Tobias, over to you to welcome our panelists.
Thanks, Emma. First of all, to all of you, welcome. Welcome to the show. And we've got, for all of you at home, we've got Anna Seaman, curator of the Moral Collective, Jillian Howard, fair director and founder at Digital Art Fair Asia, Emmy Wong, fitness and health influencer, and Nicole Yap, founder at 8gen. So for all of you folks, welcome and good afternoon to you. How are you all doing?
Good afternoon. Good, thanks.
Amazing.
Good. Hi, how are you?
Thanks so much for making the time today. All right, and for you at home, just a reminder for you, if you have a question, you can leave it in the desktop chat. But now over to you, Anna, Jillian, Nicole. I'd like to start by asking you a few questions, and we're just going to have a bit of a chat here. So my first question to you is, in what ways do Web3 and the metaverse offer content creators, artists, and influencers a space for growth? And maybe we could start with you, Anna.
Sure. Hi, thanks for having me. Okay, get straight into it. I feel that Web3 really gives the power back to the people. And so for artists and influencers and anyone creative, it's not a new way of reaching people, it's just a better way. The community is more consolidated, and there are just different ways as an artist to reach collectors. So NFTs particularly have given artists kind of authority or autonomy back to their practice. They don't have to go through third parties anymore to reach the collectors. They don't have to go to, they don't have to sort of enter the traditional art world structure. I mean, we work with particularly fine artists, and NFTs and Web3 is exciting because of that, because it just sort of opens up channels to anyone in the world. It doesn't matter where you are. You know, the metaverse is a global space. And although we've been living in a kind of globalized world for a long time, I think this has just added an extra layer of connectivity, which is essential if you're an artist with a message to say.
Amazing. Thank you, Anna. Gillian, you have maybe anything to add, your own thoughts as well?
Hi, thanks for having me. I think Anna pretty much like summed up everything that I would like to say in that context. Like I also work with mostly digital fine art artists and galleries. Sometimes I will also collaborate there with different, I guess, like any organization that is interested in art and culture. The metaverse is new opportunities that like didn't exist before. For example, like what we're doing right now, right? Like meeting other people online and being able to transfer information in with new technology, right? So I think there's a lot of new ways of communicating for artists and galleries as well, and that's what makes it so interesting. And yeah, that's pretty much. I totally agree with what Anna said earlier.
Awesome.
Yeah, I have a question for Emmy, actually. We're talking about a lot of really interesting things in art and lifestyle and fashion. We'll cover it quite a bit today, but when it comes to your experience in the lifestyle space specifically, could you tell us a bit more about this idea or this concept of move to earn and what that means?
So I'm actually quite new to this whole metaverse and Web3 concept. So I started getting more into it earlier this year, and it was really good to be able to connect with different communities in the metaverse. And for me, because as a fitness YouTuber, a lot of my content is around like workout videos. And for me, the metaverse especially, we're now exploring the move to earn concept, which has been very popular in the last few months. And for me, I feel like if it's executed well, it can be a very good way to connect and also motivate and engage with the community, like even better than, for example, traditional, like right now, it's just a video on YouTube.
Absolutely.
Yeah. First of all, thanks so much, Emmy. Nice to have you as well. Gillian, another question for you. I think we can agree the metaverse is currently a concept, right? And I'm curious to know, in your mind, how is the metaverse, and you talked about it a little bit already, but perhaps we can go a bit deeper. How's the metaverse providing a platform for creators, critics, galleries, curators, and collectors as an ecosystem? I'm curious to know.
Thank you. I'm always fascinated with people how they engage with it from now moving forward, because in my understanding and the way that I look at it could be different from anyone else that who are developers, because I'm an adapter, right? So like I look at it how I didn't create it, I didn't build this, I'm not a builder or engineer or not. I'm just someone that likes the idea, understand how information flows, and would love to encourage people to get into it, especially artists and galleries. The way that my notification.
No worries.
The way that I look at it is metaverse is really, if you look at it, how it all started, it's really started with gaming. Right? When people start gaming, they dive into a space that it doesn't actually exist in the real world. So a lot of the concept from the metaverse is how do you engage when you're playing games, how do you engage with the people that is sitting possibly 5,000 miles away from you? Maybe the other person that you're playing games with is in somewhere else. So I think with that understanding is how do we bring everything, whether it be art or music or movies, into a space that does not actually in physical touch. So that, I think that's the concept in my understanding, is how do we bring everything into the gaming culture a little bit. And when I say gaming, people sometimes feel quite do not feel very welcome to this because not everybody is a gamer. And when you say game, people will be like, oh, are you talking about video games? Are you talking about, putting a goggle on? Not necessarily that, right? Like game could be anything. Game could be on your phone. Game could be on your computer. Game could be some sort of interactive way of communication. So when we talk about metaverse, it's really just that. How do we include people that is not physically touchable, so into communicating to each other in the web? So I think I totally agree with you. It is a concept still very much right now because most of the people do not involve with the metaverse or the Web3, and it is still very early stage. But I believe that it is starting to. I think some of the information start to you start to ask question, what is it, and then people started to understand it more, and then it's starting to happen to adoption. So I believe the way that we're looking at it is, first of all, understand this concept, and then mostly the creative people are the first one to dive into that kind of new knowledge and new info, and then more people can start to adapt to it. So the opportunities, I would say, is like, I can't even imagine how big it's gonna be because it's just, it's like, I don't know, 1% right now. And then in the next 10 years, 20 years, we will see how it goes. But I think the opportunity is so big that just because we are a few of us right now might understand it as a little bit right now, I think we just tip of the iceberg at the moment.
Yeah, and that's such an exciting place to be. And I think you just kind of chopped into that iceberg and really started having us thinking about, all of the ways in which this could go. And we talked a lot about, kind of it not being in a physical place and Web3 really being kind of a conduit to creating new community in a different way. And so it's a great segue to actually my next question for Anna, which is, from your perspective, how is the metaverse and also Web3 really bridging the gap between the physical and the virtual and the worlds that we live in that way?
Okay, thanks for this question. This is my comfort zone. I mean, we exist as an NFT curatorship, as Moro Collective, in order to do exactly that, bridge the gap between the physical, or the, let's say, traditional IRL world and the Web3 crypto NFT space, because there is still quite a gap between the two, even though the very nature of Web3 is for connectivity. And as Gillian said, like to bring the possibilities really are infinite once you get your head wrapped around it. There has been, I think there's still quite a leap for people. It's such a new world. It's a new language. It's a new, ecosystem. Yes, if you're into gaming, it is more familiar. And also if you're younger, the younger generation, it's more native to them. But when you're talking about, art and creatives, I think, and collectors, let's talk about collectors, because obviously a lot, artists in general, everyone needs to feed themselves, but artists want to find new collectors. So there's a lot of question marks coming from artists and collectors and creators of what the potential can be. So bridging the gap, what I have done from my personal experience is when we started talking about NFTs and Web3, which is really not that long ago, like a year or a year and a half, people were sort of interested, they wanted to know, but they didn't quite understand what that could mean and how that could impact their lives. So we've used the NFT community and the sort of technology of NFTs and brought it into IRL to show people that actually, I mean, if you're talking specifically about an NFT artwork, it's just a digital piece of art that has been tokenized on the blockchain, therefore it has value. But other than that, it's not something that unfamiliar. And so when you show them that in real life, you can use screens, you can use augmented reality, and then you can use, in our case, what we've done is we've used physical artworks and then made NFTs from those and then showed the people, this is a physical, this is the NFT, one is digital, one is physical. And yes, the potential when you get into the digital realm is huge, but that bridge, that kind of click in people's minds is what's needed initially. People just to say, oh, okay, it's not that unusual, or it's not that scary, not scary, but it's not that intimidating. I can get this. Once that leap is done, whether you're an artist, a collector, or just an enthusiast, then you can start getting into what Julian was talking about, which is the kind of infinite potential of the space.
Yeah, incredibly interesting. I think this notion of the fact that we're perhaps in we're 1% of the potential, and that and what else is there to come. I think that's a lovely thought. For you, Anna and Gillian, both actually. I think with that notion of that 1%, it feels like opportunities are boundless, and I guess it's important to set some standards, perhaps now, as we sort of like embrace that opportunity. And I was curious to know what your thoughts are on the topic of inclusivity and diversity in the metaverse, and in what ways, I think it's particularly topical now, are you highlighting women through your project?
Do you want me to go first?
Go for it.
I'll go first. Well, I mean, you actually asked quite a lot of questions in one. Just to go back to the sort of, the 1% thing, I think, again, when you get people taking that first step into the metaverse and, visiting different spaces, different platforms, understanding that they can connect with people all over the world, and take on an avatar, you automatically get into the subject of inclusivity and diversity, because I think it's really empowering. And, from my point of view, I always talk to artists, I talk about creativity, I talk about getting stories told and heard through the metaverse and through Web3. But I think the subject of inclusivity and diversity it kind of goes hand in hand with that. I mean, not to sound too sort of utopian, but we're all humans, and everyone wants to connect on this sort of level. And so when you enter a metaverse platform, doesn't matter who you are, what you look like, what your friends are, or what what you are in the real world, you can be someone else in the metaverse, or not somebody else, just an expression of yourself, using technology to kind of break down all those boundaries. I mean, one thing we've said since the beginning is, if you're an artist, you're always against traditional art structures, things like logistics, geography, physics. Obviously, if you're making art, you have to ship it somewhere, you have to get it in front of people's eyes, you have to think about those kinds of things. But in the metaverse and Web3, that's all out the window. So you can just purely be creative. Same with the kind of avatar, diversity, inclusivity. And to get to the last part of your question, which is women, I mean, we're a all-female collective. We're an all-female panel here today. I actually don't think that we are not, as a collective, personally doing things specifically for women, but because we are women, of course, we have, we're all about girl power. But I think it's more than, it goes kind of, for us anyway, it goes beyond the question of men and women. It's more about like humankind and bringing everyone together.
Love that.
I love this question. I love this question because I do myself personally, I do advocate a lot on gender equality. I do think that the metaverse or Web3 or moving towards from bringing the art and creative people into the metaverse is somehow definitely have facilitated that movement a bit faster than I would actually imagine. And the reason that I mean, this is my personal experience of it, is when you go online and talk to people, you really rarely think about, are you a man or a female? Like that's just one thing that is true, because it's pretty much like, you don't go on your Twitter and you look at them and say, hey, are you a female or male? You probably never know, right? Or you don't really go on a NFT platform and look at it. Okay, hold on, this guy's name is Chicky Monkey 22, and then I do not the first thing I don't think about is, are you man or female? I'll probably just laugh at this because you use a funny name, right? You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So first, it's already facilitated that sort of like, I don't really think about you female or male. or you are each or they, like no matter whatever gender that you like to put in yourself, or no, like or no gender at all, right? So it doesn't matter. So first of all, that is facilitating that for sure, like letting people to just be creative, do whatever you want, say whatever you like to say in a nice way, right? In a proper, reasonable way. And then I think that actually have break down a lot of barrier for female especially. Like it or not, or I think some people agree with it, some people don't, is that there are a lot of obstacles for different gender to discuss certain topics sometimes in real life. Because like the first thing you look at someone in real life is like, what are you wearing? Or, you know, what are you wearing a dress? Do you have long hair? Do you have blonde hair? Do you have blue eyes? Do you have black eyes? You know, like people give a lot of stereotyping already. When in women, and I can give you that as a traditional art dealer term, I would say NFT Web3 art dealer, is that the numbers of female represented artists or represented artists who are female was significantly lower than male. So if I remember the number correctly, currently a gallery represented on a museum collection, I think it was 65% to 75% male compared to the rest of them being women. Right? It's a very big difference, like a 2/3 a male and then 1/3 a female. And there's a lot of issue around it, or there is a lot of problem that comes up with it because of more and less likely you go to a museum, you see a female artist work than a male artist work. Unfortunately, that has been the number, and it's been researched and so. So for what we can do moving into that, and I believe that going into the metaverse is somehow help to facilitate gender equality much likely, and also moving towards what is more fairer, not say completely fair, fairer space for artists and anyone that who are creators as well.
Amazing. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that was a great answer. Thank you. There's so much. I wish we had so much time to talk about all of that, because I think it's such a rich topic and something I'm also very passionate about. So I love, hearing just this idea of breaking down barriers, creating a more equal playing field, and really through those things and kind of through this new space, like kind of changing the paradigm and having really a sea change of how an entire industry operates or has operated historically. So great points. Emmy, I have a question for you next, actually. We'd love to hear a little bit more about what you're doing in the space, and curious if you've done any sort of NFT collaborations or worked with any other types of lifestyle projects that you'd like to share. Maybe the same topic around inclusivity, or maybe just around your experience in the space at a higher level.
Yeah, actually, I think since earlier this year, I have also been more involved with like a lot of Asian women-led NFT projects, because I do feel like the NFT space, it was still mostly dominated by male. And actually one of the projects that I was involved in, one of the founders was a woman, but her name in Discord is quite gender neutral. But then at one of the fireside chats, when everyone heard that her voice was like female, like everyone's going crazy in the group. So I do feel like right now, people, especially I guess founders of NFT like projects, but a lot of times like people still assume it's mainly done by male. So I love to support projects that are like a whole women-led teams. And I actually was looking into launching my own sort of NFT or move to earn project as well. And back then I was also very like focused on finding a whole women team as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, sorry, go ahead, Emmy.
And so for us is now mainly to see how to take the move to earn concept to the next level, because we want it to be more inclusive. For example, now a lot of times you need a Fitbit or you need an Apple Watch, but not everyone has that. So just want to see like how the technology can take us in the coming future.
Amazing. Well, firstly, I encourage you to do good luck with the project. I'm sure it's going to be amazing.
Thank you.
So I want to say that first. But I actually for Jillian, Anna, sort of one of the final questions for you. Do you have any explicit recommendations for content creators who want to start exploring the metaverse? Perhaps, Anna, we could start with you here.
Tips. Wow, I could. This also could take us all day. I just want to say one thing about what Emmy said. It is, despite what I said about everyone being connected, it is still quite a male-heavy space, especially when you get down to the crypto bros and the yacht parties and everything. So I think it is important for. Sorry, it'd make you laugh. I think it is important for women to be in the space, also to support other women. Tips on content creators. I think I always say this, again, I'm very much of somebody who really encourages people to create content from their heart. So whichever space you're in, traditional, IRL, crypto, NFTs, as an artist, as a curator, never veer from that, because as soon as you start trying to be like someone else, as soon as you get onto the platforms and you see this is selling and this is not, and you try to emulate what you're seeing, you're going to lose your calling as an artist. So that's my number one tip. I always tell people, don't be put off by the crowds, or not put off, but distracted by the shiny lights. That's my number one thing. And the other major tip that I always tell people, that we always tell people at Morrow, is that NFT art and the community is the number one thing. So be connected, stay connected, get on Twitter, get on Discord, talk to people. Don't chill them. I'm not talking about sending your art everywhere. I'm talking about see what the conversation is, connect with people. You never know who's going to be your collector or who you can collaborate with. Because NFTs or the new space is also about collaboration. One of our artists, in fact, my co-founder, Stelkart, she's a really popular NFT artist, but what's made her even more popular is to collaborate with other people in the space. So whether that's on sound or whether that's on graphics or whatever your skill set is, if you find someone else who's got a strong skill set in a different area, but that complement each other, then that collaborations are really key, and it gives you access to wider audiences, which is also what everybody wants.
Amazing. Gillian, any thoughts on the topic as well? Should I repeat the question for you, Benefit, or are you okay?
I'm good. I'm good.
Right,
I really agree with what Anna said. I think so. For what I do, digital warfare, I think give you a quick background on what I do is because when I used to work in the traditional art industry, and I was an art curator. I was managing galleries and museum collection. When I started digital warfare, the goal was really about building a platform for to create more a fairer situation for artists to engage with it, because I believe, and I truly believe, that art and culture is really, really important to human race, to all of us, to anyone, because it is the core of who we are. And if it's going to kind of wider point of view, is if art and culture can solve any sort of problem, it would be peace, right? Because everybody can be more acceptance of who other people are and what you do, whatever you are, women or women or male or whatever you identify yourself. It doesn't matter in the metaverse, and that's the kind of the hope that I always hold on, and but I believe it, that why I support artists and work with artists, and digital art has always been the goal has always been about that, to let everybody have a chance to show their work, to talk about things, to go under one roof once a year physically, or in different city, or in Asia or in Europe, whatever. That's it, right? And really saying that like that. Sorry, so I just went too far away from what we want to talk about. But I think the way that we can go from traditional curation, what are the tips, right? We're saying that the tips are use all this opportunity right here. What Anna said earlier is about collaboration. And digital space is about, it's so I mean, we first talked about it's quite a very accepting space right here. It's very gender neutral. It's not a lot of barrier for getting there. Do stay connect, what Anna says, stay connect and focus on collaboration and use the opportunity out there, right? There is all this sort of technology there'll be NFTs, or Zoom panels right now, or any sort of community you can get into on Discord, on Twitter. Go in there and use the opportunity to try to do something that, as an artist, what you believe in, right? If your belief is, I believe this piece of work is gonna help me to promote the idea of gender equality, then do it. Right, like grab the opportunity and go with it, because now I think a lot of the time, especially younger artists, we always say that, like, we don't have the opportunity, but now we do, right? We do have the opportunity, and this is our time to go into and get into the space and use this opportunity to do something that probably like once in a lifetime now, right? Like, like not every era there's going to be a new metaverse coming into the space, and I think this is my only tip, is use the opportunity right now. What we have, a different community is so welcoming. Pretty much that.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the wonderful insights. Not sure, I think we may have lost Emmy there for a second, but I think we have a couple of questions that we may have received in the meantime. I have one question, maybe. We kind of touched on this to some degree already, Jillian and Anna, but a question that came from the audience is, do you think the metaverse will enable people to connect in new ways beyond, I suppose, how we connect today?
I mean, short answer, yes. I think we've covered it a lot.
Yeah, we have.
Again, I feel like it's about this leap of understanding. Once you get what it is, then the answer, of course, is obvious. Yes, and yes, definitely.
So, like, a good example is I think a few years ago when I started learning about VR, and at that time, like, there was no NFT and metaverse. The word doesn't really exist, right? Like a couple of years back, and I learned that you can high-five people in the metaverse with a VR goggle, right? It was new. I was like, my mind was blown, and I was like, wow, you can high-five people even after that? Now, obviously, that it is possible. But I think one thing that I learned from that is the use case of it. Imagine someone who might be disabled or in a wheelchair, or they were in a sick bed and they weren't able to go to places, right? Like maybe there's an art fair, maybe there's a music festival. And that sort of communication these days, that they can put on a goggle and they can hi-fi and, all this stuff is amazing.
Mm.
Yeah. I think just to add to that too, we had an experience last year when we were curating an exhibition for Super Rare. And also it was one of my first times. I mean, this is like a year ago. It's not exactly long ago, putting on the goggles. And suddenly you can talk to someone. I mean, she was in Miami and I can hear her, and like, our avatars are approaching. And it is, and that's why I said earlier, for the younger generation, it's kind of normal. The game of Fortnite, I don't know, Minecraft, it's not even new to them because it's just something that they're growing up with. That's why I believe in 10 years, this is going to be so normal that, and the innovation that's going to be on top of what we have now and the technology is going to be connecting in ways that we can't probably even imagine right now.
Yeah, I think, sorry, Emma.
No, go ahead. I have another question. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I think what's resonating with me a lot is, I think maybe you mentioned it earlier, Anna, but this sort of creating an anchor point so that you can have some reference as to how to sort of get into the space and it not to feel so intimidating. And I think in your context, that was sort of like your physical art piece, digital art piece reference. But then I think if we can sort of go from that mode and switch it to now look at what potential there is beyond what you might have like had as the initial reference point, then it starts to become super interesting. Huh? That's sort of been the narrative that I've sort of taken away from listening to you both. Amazing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I think I have one more quick question for you guys before we go, if we have time. I think we do. I guess quick answers, but maybe just a quick thought on like, how have NFTs really changed or kind of propelled people's perception of digital art as like a credible or even like kind of better medium maybe than traditional art? Or how has it changed the medium of art in general as we've historically thought about it?
I can definitely take that one just quickly. I know Julian probably has something to say too. I'll just say really, really quickly. I mean, once you understand that an NFT is a way of giving value to a digital piece of art, then you understand that NFTs are a completely game changer. There's a history of transactions, a history of ownership. NFTs can't be stolen. Well, let's just, theoretically can't be stolen, can't be copied, can't be lost, and for creatives to have that kind of authenticity and transparency, then that has a wide impacts and will as time goes on. That's my quick answer.
Wonderful. Jillian, anything to add? Or Emmy, just welcome back also.
Sorry, my connection was bad and it's just locked out by the phone.
No worries.
Par for the course. All good, Emmy.
Sorry, we were saying that the NFT transaction on digital art, right? I compare the traditional art. Maybe I can add on that. I truly agree with what Anna was saying, that and what NFT gives the value of digital art, but also because if I want to give this a really great example, and I think because the world has changed quite a lot the last, I'd just say 2 decades, 3 decades, and how we view and material things, right? Like people used to, I would say, like, for example, like you want to live in a massive house, right? If you make it, you want to own a lot of things, you want to own 5 cars and big swimming pool and et cetera. And I used to, grow up with the ideology and like, hey, when I grow up, or when I made it, I would love to have a big house, right? And then last week I was moving house, and I just thought to myself, right? I was like, all this art that I own here, where am I going to put it? Like, where? And then I have this thought, and I think that's a quite interesting concept too for new generation of art collectors to think about it, this like from here onwards. Because I own traditional art, physical art, and then I kind of moved into like collecting NFT art as well. And then when I was moving, I thought to myself, 1 second, I just wish that I don't own any of these items here, because I know how much money it's going to cost me to move it, to store it. Even trying to sell it, it's just so difficult. And I think in the world that changes so much throughout the last couple of decades, from being able to air travel, being able to do all the things that we can do, and you don't need to go to the bank to get money, everything is virtual these days, the way that we look at things sort of change. And I'm not saying that I would never own traditional art. I would still love to have them. But I think like NFT and traditional art do not have a complex, because it's completely different. I think digital art, you show it on a screen or you keep it on an NFT, you can still trade it, but it has a lot of benefits, right? It's my daughter.
Hello.
The physical and digital world colliding
there we
in real
go.
time.
There we go.
I think on that point, I just think that like the way that like we compare things is not necessarily that like traditional art is not good. It's just completely different.
Right.
Like and NFT is definitely giving value of digital art, and it both have pros and cons. But I think I'm going towards a digital. Sorry, excuse me. Okay. I'm definitely going towards, sorry about it, going towards the
no worries.
Digital side of it. I can see the benefits of it. I can also see the pros and cons. And I think people who own both would agree with me. And I can see how the younger generation now is moving towards like, I would love to own some NFTs because I can move it easily. I can buy a screen to display it. I can have the new watch, I forgot what was the brand of that. You can have a watch, and you can have your crypto puns on it. You can have your necklace, and you can have artwork on there. You can have your Twitter icon. You can have your. I can keep going on this, right? Yeah. But I can see that is definitely not contradictory. It's going separate, right? Because like you can do both.
Wonderful. Well, I think that was great, and probably a great place to end. I think, thank you all so much. It was really, really a pleasure to meet you all and to hear about your journey in the space. And thank you so much for sharing your passion and your insights with us. So thank you to Anna and Jillian and Emmy. It was really nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Lovely to meet you.
All right, great. Well, we are moving on to our next panel, which is about building immersive experiences. And so for some context, let's start by watching this clip.
Welcome to the Innovative Trends to Watch panel. Our panelists work every day building worlds and experiences like what we're sharing as a collective right now. For brands, immersive experiences are a nearly limitless opportunity. Let's hear what they have to offer more specifically, and as always, drop your questions in the chat.
Hey everyone, so we'll be exploring in our next panel the future of virtual experiences and how brands can harness the opportunities they present. We'll take a closer look at some of the trends in the region, and to do that, over to you, Emma.
All right, thank you, Tobias. So with me now for this panel, we have Justine Vilgrain, the creative strategist and co-founder at Brauhaus, Patrick De Jong, founder and CCO at Artificial Rome. We have Kadeen James, metaverse strategist at Accenture and founder at Immersive Kind. And we also have Rahul Sachin Anand, the consulting editor at Campaign Asia Pacific. And finally, Amir Al-Busaidi, founder and CEO of Milham VR. So welcome to all of you. Thank you for being with us here today. And also just a reminder to the audience before we get started that you can, again, leave your questions, and we'll try to get to it at the end of the chat. Just to get started, Rahul, are you with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
Wonderful, lovely. So let's start with you. Would love to just kick things right off and hear a little bit about some of the examples of early adoption of Web3 and really the metaverse in Asia Pacific, just to get us going.
So, it's been an interesting journey in Asia Pacific for Web3 and the metaverse. A year ago or 18 months ago, people were saying it's all it's all fluff and it's all far away, and it's just a big bubble. A year to 18 months on, everybody seems to want a piece of the action. We have old banks like HSBC, and we have DBS who've invested in the metaverse. We have consumer goods companies like Colgate. We have Dove in the metaverse. And we have a whole bunch of startups who also want to be part of the metaverse. I think the question is not if they want to be in the metaverse, it's how they want to be in the metaverse and how quickly they can really build out a viable presence in the metaverse.
Wonderful, thank you for that. So I think, hey, Amira, did you just join us? Oh, welcome. Okay, so. Yeah, so next question, is Kadeen with us as well? Just want to make sure we have everybody. Or not? Okay. All right, we're going to move on to Patrick then. Sorry, I think we have a few, maybe some late joiners or maybe some people that will come a bit later. But Patrick, I'd love to jump to you. So is storytelling important, or what is the importance of storytelling? Because I think the answer is probably yes when we are creating immersive experiences.
Yeah, I mean, that is not such a tricky question. Well, it is, of course, key. And this is actually not really a new genre. We have, I mean, we draw most of our knowledge from multiplayer games. And there to build a compelling story or an immersive environment, several techniques have been used over the past 30 years. I mean, this is as old as the internet. And I always try to urge people to see this not as like a big bubble and you can do whatever you like at the moment, but see where it comes from and maybe work with the same techniques that storytellers have done in games or in web special experiences for the past 20 years. It's not that new, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we'll definitely probe further on that. So thank you for kicking us off on that. And welcome back to Amira. Can you hear us okay?
Yeah.
Oh, welcome. Hey, actually, the next question's for you. So, we'd love to talk a little bit more about the applications of the metaverse, and in your case specifically, how that works in healthcare. Love to hear from you just about how immersive experiences have the potential to really change people's lives.
Now, the metaverse has a lot of opportunities in different sectors, and I interested in applying the benefit of metaverse to the sector of the healthcare because it has a direct effect on the people's lives. So our solution is focusing on the patients and improving the treatment journey of the patient by trying to reduce the stress, anxiety, which can improve the results of the treatment and can help the patient and the doctor at the same time. It has a lot of, for healthcare itself, there are a lot of applications like for medical training, for rehabilitation, for example, because as we know that in rehabilitation, in many cases, patients are not getting better soon because they have depression and other side effects. So virtual reality can make it much more easier way, and also it can reflect the improvement for the patients in very positive way, which can help in improving their psychological side and as a result the health status.
Yeah, I think that's great, and really encouraging to hear. I think, and some of the examples you gave are really inspiring. And when it comes to kind of even just the idea of patients healing or dealing with certain things, maybe depression, like what is the role of community, if at all, in healthcare within immersive experiences? Is that something that you're keen to explore?
You mean the acceptance for using the metaverse for healthcare, or?
Sure, just like the idea of patient community, I guess, within immersive experiences, or is it more of a one-to-one kind of status at the moment?
Actually, at the moment, we are using it for individual patients, but we have seen the effect of using the metaverse on the surrounding community for the patients, like for the parents, for the kids, for example, for the healthcare specialists, and how can metaverse help? We are thinking also in the future by connecting on more patients and making community of the therapists and the patients together. So from our experiments that we have done, we found that the effect on the community is very positive, especially for the parents, because as you know, when you have kids who are like having chronic diseases like cancer or different diseases, they are carrying a lot of negative feelings also, because they are with their for months and maybe years. So by reducing the stress from the patients, it directly affects the parents and the family and the surrounding community.
Yeah, that's a really great thing to hear, just kind of how the ripple effect of what that can do for the greater community. Thank you for sharing that. Justine, over to you. Kind of a wide-angle question here, but would love your point of view. This idea of collaboration and co-creation is something we've talked quite a bit about, and I'm sure all of us here have a lot to say on, but would love your point of view or your vision for what you think the possibilities are in the metaverse.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I think like not just out of the metaverse, but more into like the Web3 community is such a small sector, like the number of people working into it, that there's really like we really take in account this word WAGMI, we all gonna make it, and the fact of bringing in many industry to make project even stronger, as well as brand arriving in the sector, being a bit lost into what to do and accepting what we didn't have before, which was, when you used to work for a brand, the brand never mentioned your name, never mentioned the artist behind work. And now it's really like open, and they really bring in the artist or the collaboration they do within each other up front. And it's that makes it the project even stronger. Then brands arriving being like, oh, we made everything ourselves, which, it's not the case. And there's many people working behind this. So I really think Web3 in general really brings in, because there's no transparency within the blockchain, it's, an open source, and it makes as well collaboration be much more open and brighter. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I think that's really exciting, and it's opens up so much opportunity, as you said, which is really, I think, really the theme of today, beyond just metaverse and Web3, just really the opportunity that is in front of us. This one's for Rahul. What are some of the focus points for brands or for CMOs when thinking about the metaverse, thinking about immersive experiences? How is the space relevant to them, and what can they do to kind of further the adoption or interest in the space?
So I think most CMOs and brands want to be in the metaverse. They have to be in the metaverse. From an Asia Pacific perspective, there's a lot of interest, obviously, because that's where Gen Z is today. So the big markets, India and China, consumers there are all on their mobile phones and all in virtual worlds anyway, with gaming and those kind of opportunities. So they really need to be there. The question is for brands and marketing leaders is how to get into the metaverse. Just given their budgets and interests in Web 1 and 2 yet being sort of worked out and worked down. A lot of the CMOs we speak to and I speak to suggest that they're yet trying to figure out how to allocate budgets for the Web 2 and even Web 1 in some cases. So Web 3 and the metaverse may be yet some way away from becoming absolutely mainstream and growing beyond pilot projects and sort of early stage adoption.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Rahul. Patrick, I saw you kind of nodding your head there as Rahul was talking. Do you have anything you'd like to add in terms of either brands or CMOs or C-level interests and kind of what's needed to get them really kind of adoption, in their company or wherever they may be?
Yeah, sure. From what we are seeing, there's also a lot of fear still with the CMOs. It's a bit like the deer is staring into the headlights, and there's something coming. I have to participate, but there's not really the joy that actually can come from those projects. So what we're trying to do with in workshops or with marketing people that we actually try to draw a line from the past and show them gaining experiences and how the history of working in this field worked. And what is also a good argument, the production costs are getting lower and lower, because everyone's like, oh, it's a big budget to go into the metaverse. It's actually getting less and less since the work that Epic does or what game engines give you today is for free for creators. That's a whole different thing than what was going on 10 years ago. So the production costs are getting lower and lower. Also, the server costs are getting lower and lower. And I think it's okay to just jump in and see what has been done in the past and not being afraid of allocating budgets to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that idea of overcoming fear is something that's really, or trepidation or whatever it kind of may be, I think is something that that's why we're all here. I think these conversations are really a really great way to get people interested, no matter their knowledge level, their comfort level with the space, and just hearing your point of view and inspirational insights is really great. So Justine, we talked a little bit about kind of collaboration and whatnot, but would love to hear your thoughts in terms of how the metaverse actually empowers talent and really potentially at a higher level also how it helps to have an impact on society and kind of how society can accept really this new way of interacting that the metaverse and these immersive experiences have introduced.
Yeah. So on that, for example, we work with digital artists, and in the past, digital artists, even themselves, wouldn't not mention they were digital artists. They'll be like, I'm an animator, I'm a motion designer. And now with the fact that they can sell their artwork within the blockchain, makes them be an artist and makes them the ability to reach to many people worldwide and to be able to showcase their artwork. I think as well, what I say when people ask me where do you see the metaverse going? I really think of education and how, now that the world is kind of collapsing around and traveling and everything is going to be much more difficult. The fact that people can go and have follow educational courses as well as meeting people inside the metaverse without needing to travel. I think this is going to be a big impact into a switch in society. And like we mentioned before, people spend their time on social and screens. So this is just going to be a way of improving that interactivity at a certain moment.
That's so interesting. Do you think that it's safe to say that in many ways, maybe just specifically in the art space and with in relation to artists, that the immersive experiences, NFTs, metaverse has democratized kind of that craft? And if so, what are the ripple effects of that? Excuse me.
Yeah, I think it's a huge improvement for digital artists. The fact that they can sell, they can be exhibit, that now digital art is being set as a medium, an artistic medium, which wasn't necessarily the fact in the past, because people was like, oh, I'm just buying a file. It's like, well, no, you're buying a piece of art. That's a digital art piece, and the way you display it is however you want to. So I think this is really a good improvement in terms of this, because there's thousands and thousands of digital artists that were completely underestimated before, and now are actually being put up front in museum and art fairs and galleries. So it's a new as well way of collecting art through your wallet. So totally.
Wonderful. Love to hear that. Okay, so maybe for a final remark here, this has been so wonderful and so interesting so far as well, and thank you all for your insight. And I think what's so great about this panel is you all come from different angles, but we're all sort of talking about a shared theme around immersive experiences. But this is for everybody, and maybe we can start with you, Patrick, but pass it on to others as well. Just want to ask around some recommendations maybe for brands or organizations who might be watching today in terms of how they can really explore and build immersive experiences themselves. Or also maybe some of the challenges as well, maybe challenges and opportunities. Excuse me, sorry.
I can start. I think something that we kind of say to our client is like everyone, all brands now wants to touch Gen Z, like kids and people. Sorry, there's like noise behind me.
No worries.
But the fact that like Gen Z right now, they're not going to buy necessarily like a high-end product. But in 10 years, let's say this brand is creating a video game or something that this Gen Z is interacting with. Well, in 10 years' time, when that person is going to be having the finance to be able to purchase something, this is when they're going to be thinking about that brand from the past and know, because they've grown up with it, that's how they're going to be marketing. So I feel like now what's happening is kind of a long-term marketing plan where people will see revenue, but like in 10 years of what they've done now today and the metaverse.
Wonderful. Anyone else care to add on to that?
Yeah, but I would probably add, I would argue that it's in a long perspective of how the metaverse is developing, it's not only a Gen Z subject. Of course, it's driven like the huge numbers. They're definitely with all these Fortnite players, it's a very young target group. But this is changing rapidly. I mean, look at what we are doing right now. This is a metaverse which runs in a browser. I'm pretty sure that the average age group is around 30, 40 in the moment. So you can reach this audience simply by building a three-dimensional world that is pretty close to what brand spaces are doing in the real world today. They have proven to be quite effective. The cool thing is, in the metaverse, you don't have any limitations. I'm working with a lot of retail designers or brand space designers, and they are envious for, you can build it as big as you like, you know. So if I build a tower in the metaverse, I don't care if it's 100 meters or 10 meters. Do that in the real world, well, they have more serious restrictions. So you can build these immersive, wonderful worlds, and you can have a social interaction for every age group that is very closer to what we know from normal life. So in a three-dimensional environment that is virtual, you can interact with each other more natural than what you do in a chat system or you do in a Facebook feed. And then I think that is something that is going more and more into the mainstream. So I'm actually urging clients to work with any age group and go where they are and bring these immersive experience to them with technology like pixel streaming, like we're doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, just to add there quickly, there's a lot of sense of a sort of a metaverse gold rush, developing especially across Asia Pacific. The sense when we speak to some marketers and speak to consultants is that you treat it like almost like you treated social media back in Web 2, where you decided where you wanted to be, how you wanted to be there, and not try and stampede into every platform and for every occasion just because you think it's smart for your brand to be on the metaverse.
Sort of not just being there because everybody's there, but really having an exact reason and kind of and purpose. Excuse me. Yeah. Are there any other? We talked a bit about fear and trepidation, just in terms of like people's desire to adopt or both at a business level, at an individual level. Is there anything that you think brands can do, sort of building on what you just said, Raul, like to encourage people to jump in and to try, right? I think there may be sometimes an expectation of you have to know everything in order to have a seat at the table, but how can we break that barrier down and invite people to, come into the conversation and learn at the ground level?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is down to awareness and knowledge of the whole subject of Web3 and the metaverse. A lot of that is a bit of voodoo and pseudoscience. Yet people say a lot of things about the metaverse. They say even more things about Web3. People are just beginning to understand it, especially marketers and brand experts that we speak to. It's just a bit of realization that's happening now. So and you'll also see that brands and marketers are also doing this in very small pilot projects and trying to find their way very slowly. I think that phase is sort of settling down. We'll start seeing more larger commercial rollouts. We've seen it, for example, in Seoul, in Korea. We saw the city administration invest, I think, $3 billion in building out a metaverse thing just to make citizen services more easily accessible and better accessible. So that's a kind of end stage use that's potentially interesting for metaverse and the Web3. But it's for the moment, it's yet about awareness and building knowledge for end consumers, and hopefully marketers and branding experts can sort of help down this road.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm going to direct this one at Patrick and Justine, but please, all of you, feel free to respond. Just going a step beyond like awareness and kind of interest, what would you say to skeptics? What are the things that people who are naysayers or those who don't believe in the future of kind of Web3 and where we're heading with the metaverse? How do you get them on board? All of you, really, with question to all of you.
So what I'd say to my friend is that we're at the same level right now that we were when we were telling brands, you need to have a website and sell your clothing on the website. And brands were like, why do I need to do this? I've got a shop people can come to. And I feel like this is where we at the level of people not trusting it, as well as bringing to the bear market at the moment. People are like, oh yeah, I told you this is never going to work. And it's like, this is just the beginning of something that in 5 years, you're going to be like, oh, why did I not believe in this before? So yeah, I feel for me, it's like obvious that it's a continuity of what's going on in the internet today. People are constantly connected, constantly our data are being used by other people. And this is really bringing back to the user its own value and its own data.
I would agree. I actually started my career in '99 in this first new economy bubble, and it's super, super similar. Actually, my first boss gave out the book to clients that didn't know why we needed a website. And the book about Snow Crash, about the metaverse. So that was how we convinced clients in '99. It's very, very similar today. But I would like to add something. It is actually good to be critical at the moment, because this was like a super infused, like COVID infused gold rush situation. And especially during COVID, there were a lot of bad examples happening with the poor quality, not enough people there. So I can understand that brands are careful at the moment and don't want to do the wrong move. But right now, I mean, I think there are really, really a lot of good examples on how to do a successful metaverse project. And if you go, it's okay to have a quality standard, and sometimes I'm a bit surprised of what is okay at the moment, because I'm pretty sure that a lot of us will blush in a few years and say, oh, I did that 5 years ago, I better not talk about it. So if we apply quality standards, like that we have in architecture or in photography, and then go to successful cases of well-executed metaverse projects, I think you can do amazing things at the moment. And we're losing this first mover moment. I mean, this is actually over now. Now you actually have to deliver a really, really good experience. And it's possible, and there has been done, the technology is there. And if you navigate this space in the right way, I think you can have very, very successful projects. I mean, look at numbers that are far beyond the reach of what you did with big special websites 10 years ago. And these budgets are very similar, actually. So you can invest into a special website or built a wonderful metaverse project with a very similar budget. So I think it's totally fine to go for it.
Absolutely. Great answers. Thank you both. And Raul and Amira, any thoughts on that idea, or going back to the original question of just skeptics, what do you say to them within your respective fields, those who may...
So sorry, go ahead, Amira.
No. You can go ahead.
Thank you. So I was just going to say that I remain, somewhat on the skeptic sides on two fronts. One is, what this whole subject of sustainability and things. When you speak to the Web3 and Metaverse guys, they talk of things like gas fees. What happens if everything can't go on the Metaverse, or your lights are going out, basically. So when you're building all these things, I think we need to just be a little more cautious, expecting this thing to overnight or over the next quick few months turn into this complete recast or overhaul of marketing and branding as we know it. I think it's some way a ways yet. Hopefully I don't have to eat my words in 3 months time, but yeah. The second thing, of course, is issues around regulation and legality that I don't think everybody's figured out. So who owns the products that are made on the metaverse, who can regulate them? Those are things that when we interview marketers and we interview CMOs, and the questions are yet and they don't have answers to them sufficiently clearly. So I remain yet a reasonable skeptic about where the metaverse and Web3 is going.
Great answers. Thank you all. I think maybe one final closing question, just a kind of quick final round, would be, what is like the thing that most excites you about where we're heading? I know we're talking about quite a lot of concurrent themes and things like that, but where are sort of the biggest areas of excitement for each of you individually? Maybe we can start with Justine, and then I think we do have one other question from the audience after, which I can't quite see, if you can just scroll down. But yes, let's start there. What excites you most about the metaverse?
I think it was what Patrick said, is the unlimitation, like everything is possible. Every element that we ever imagined with today, like technology. So as a conceptor, you can really kind of digging at crazy ideas and then tell your client, and they're like, you're crazy. And you're like, well, it's possible. We can do it. If you leave us the time and the money to be able to do this, we can create this huge experience without limitation. So I think that's what excites me the most, is all the amazing stuff we can do without being blocked by the gravity.
Love that. Patrick, what about you?
Well, as just Pete said, of course, the unlimitlessness. But I'm actually particularly excited about that we can do it together all of a sudden. I mean, it's a wonderful experience to be in the same room and actually experience something that we have done in, digital experiences for the past 10 years alone. We were scrolling our browser. And now all of a sudden, it's a totally different thing if you go into it with 20 people. And I'm actually waiting for the time where we have metaverse movies, where you actually stand inside an entirely virtual world that actually tells you a long story. Instead of going to the movie theater, you go walk through this movie with 20 of your friends. And I think that is a very exciting time, and also something that makes it more humane. Because, we've been doing VR for the past 10 years. And this isolation of the human is sometimes a bit frightening as well. If you're alone with your goggles, it's not a positive future. But part where you experience something together as a group in a social environment, that is actually the more humane part, and that this is actually coming to us and it does connect us, and it really helped through COVID actually, and that's why it was driven so harshly that we are, without traveling, being able to connect more intensely in a more natural way. And this is actually something I'm quite excited about, and I love being part of it, actually.
Wonderful. Amira, what about you? Anything that just really stands out and really excites you?
Yeah. For me, the effect on the human brain. So in metaverse and especially VR, you can put the human in different experience and virtual experience, and he will really feel that she or he is inside it, can react with it, and in a way that it is not only affecting what he can see, but also what he can feel. The whole body is interacting with it. So this thing can make a huge effect to the experience that the person is living. Not only for myself, I am trying to implement this in healthcare, but also different sectors, like, for example, tourism. You can live experiences that related to the reality, but also you can enhance the experiences. You can make it more fantasy, more fun, and you can join like a group of people enjoying the same virtual imagination experience. So this is the thing that is attracting me to work more in metaverse and try to implement it more.
Wonderful. And Ruel, on to you. What's the thing that is most interesting, or thing that really gets you out of bed in the morning about all of this? Oh, you're muted.
For me, it's really the long-term possibilities of the metaverse. It's not really the cute brand projects or the cute marketing projects we're seeing now. It's really a fundamental shift that can happen in areas like education, healthcare, government services, and completely disrupting how we look at these sectors and these segments and how we access them today. On Web 1 and 2. I'm really keen to see how the virtual world can completely disrupt these sectors and make it perhaps easier and better for all of us.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And I think we do have one question from the audience, if we still have time, I think, for one more. This is for Amira. Curious about kind of, the role of VR specifically, if that's something that you've been utilizing within your region or within the work that you're doing, what that would look like or what the vision could be there.
Currently, we are working in the region of GCC countries, Gulf countries, Oman currently, and we are looking to head Saudi and UAE in the next stage, inshallah. So we are working currently with the hospitals to implement virtual reality for the cancer patients in this stage. And we are looking into implementing VR to reduce the anxiety for the patients. So we already started working with hospitals and with patients, and we found the results are very positive. And we are trying now. We have started with the kids, and now we are moving to the adults. We have used it for specific cases, and now we are looking also to implement it in like more wider cases. In the next stage, we will be implementing it for mindfulness and for breathing. And what we have found that there is a need, and but still. As any new technology that you want to bring in any field, you will find some challenges that you need to solve. But the good thing that we have a collaboration with the hospitals and with the healthcare specialists who are interested into this technology and in applying it.
Wonderful. All right, that's a great answer. And I think we do have one final question. If my team here on the side, my production team, if you could just bring it to the top of the screen, I'm not able to read the whole thing. Let's just see what it is here. Okay, yeah, if you had to convince a brand to start exploring immersive experiences, what would your pitch really look like to them? And I'll kind of leave that open to the group, but maybe if someone feels compelled to answer, we'll just go that way.
I think it depends on the brand itself. Like every brand needs to have a different kind of strategy to go into it. It's, every brand is different. They have different product, different target. So it's really a matter of analyzing, understanding the brand and what would be the best way they could go inside of it.
Yeah, I think absolutely not following the herd when it comes to deciding on a Web3 metaverse plan, and just deciding if it's first of all worth your time, and then making like it's been suggested, making a brand specific sort of plan to get into the metaverse or Web3.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, thank you all so much. I think we're actually at the end of the panel. That was a really invigorating and interesting conversation. So thank you all for bringing your unique perspectives and for really taking the time to answer everything so thoughtfully. It's really amazing to see how immersive experiences can really bring brands closer to their audiences, and also all of really the myriad of applications that technology has to really impact society in a positive way. So thank you again to Justine and Patrick, Rahul, and Amira. It was wonderful to meet you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, Tobias, take us to our next topic.
Sure, Emma. I'm excited about this one, actually. Let's dive into the tech behind the metaverse. But before, let's roll the clip.
Welcome to the tech behind the spatial web panel. Give it up for an incredible lineup of experts. All of these folks are operating at the forefront of the emerging tech that we collectively call Web3, and that's set to change the world. Any questions for the panel? Just drop them in the chat. And enjoy.
Sorry, I just needed a coffee.
Hey, folks. How are y'all doing? Can you hear me?
Is it Tobias?
Yes, Tobias. Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you, yeah.
Nice to meet you, man.
How's it going?
Hey, Tobias. Good, good.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining. All right, so I'm just going to do some brief introductions for you all, if that's all right. So we've got Hassan Kurtulus, CEO of Proofstack, Ikuma Ueno, Chief Strategy Officer at Vict. We've got Azmi Suhaimi, advisor at CryptoZen. Welcome to all of you. I hope I have done your names justice. If not, my sincerest apologies. Don't hold it against me. I'm doing my best over here. But it's super nice to have you, and thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having us here.
Amazing. So I think, given the nature of the topic at hand, I would like to start off by doing a quick round on why blockchain is so crucial for the metaverse and Web3. So, Ikuma, perhaps we could start with you. Would that be all right?
Sure. So why is the blockchain crucial? It is very important for the the metaverse and Web3, as the metaverse and Web3 is always about UGC and the player centric, and it is that in a way that for the metaverse to be a mainstream, you need to have the own identity, the own wallet, and having to interact with all the metaverse and Web3 products itself. So like with Web3 products, you see in the round spaces such as DeFi spaces, where you can stake your token, you can purchase your tokens anywhere in decentralized exchanges and stake those tokens, and have that being integrated and have the peer-to-peer settlements there without going to a central authority. So the blockchain plays a main part in that section as well. So it is, without having a blockchain technology, metaverse and Web3 will actually not be there.
Yeah. So essentially critical. Anything anyone else would like to add to that? Since it was quite an extensive and clear response, but just out of curiosity, anything anyone would like to add to that one?
Sure. So yeah, I largely agree in the fact that you have to, the function of a Web3, right, is that you need to remove the centralization aspect, which Ikuma talked about it, and that requires self-custody in a sense. So, but in that understanding of the self-custody, the user needs to have the control and the choice to be able, to share or not share certain types of information, data, and also in terms of the wallet, he or she will need to have the interface that is interoperable. So I think if that is solved through various iterations in the future, then we will have a further semblance of what the metaverse in its full form would be and its full potential would be.
Yeah, appreciate that, Azmi. That's brilliant. I just wanted to shout out to all you folks at home. Remember that you can leave your questions in the desktop chat. So please go ahead and do that. But Asmi, I'll continue with you for the time being, if that's all right. Let's dive a bit deeper into the topic. So my question to you is, how will NFTs redefine our financial infrastructure in your mind?
Cool. Yeah, thanks for the question. So yeah, as I've mentioned previously, we have always relied on middlemen, right? Some level of centralization to transact value in Web 1 and Web 2. Web 2 being the internet that we are in right now. I see NFTs as sort of like a Trojan horse of sorts, as it utilizes the benefits of an open, decentralized ledger. And as it's in the name itself, the T is in the term NFT, right? Being the token part of the blockchain. And thus, it doesn't need any middleman to transact, but then it has the drawing power on what it represents to people in a demonstrative, tangible manner. So one aspect of NFTs is the proof of ownership of real-world items, digitally rather than with paper records. So with this, you can see already use cases of not just art and sports memorabilia, but in the future, there could be movement in terms of doing authentication, insurance policies, real estate taxes, all that being onboarded online in the future and potentially on the ledger in the coming years. But what I'd like to point out is the NFT adds another dimension. The focus and movement for NFT users is now largely cultural, lifestyle. There's a form of social proofing, and that's linked a lot to SNS, social networking services. So this function opens up a wider net of users who just want that particular item because it's cool, or they like it, or it represents them, or their personality, or even their community. So in a way, it will become, as I see it, the de facto social currency wallet. So everyone will have a de facto social currency wallet, and it's viewable by all. So the advantages for NFTs that I see is that onboarding of these users right now, it's somewhat simpler, and it will get simpler over time. So users see, for example, right now, you see a friend having a cool NFT profile picture, right? So right now, what you need to have is basically a self-custodial wallet, like a MetaMask mobile app. You load it your ETH, go to OpenSea, and boom, you get that NFT. But then back to the point which I mentioned, why is it a Trojan horse? People don't need to know about the tech aspects of the blockchain. To them, it just works. So this iteration, right, of simplification will be the key in terms of making it the financial infrastructure of the future. It will be self-custodial, meaning the control of that wallet, and NFTs will be with the user. And just to add some numbers, it's interesting that this year alone, $30 billion worth of NFTs volume has been changed hands in OpenSea alone, according to some estimates. So as a brand, you can see, or company, you can see that you now have a direct open access to reward, retain your loyal communities, but which is now not closed source, it's open source. And ideally, it is interoperable in the future. So imagine the possibilities you can have when you have different communities interacting and collaborating with each other. You get these collections of different folk directly interfacing with one another and discovering each other's social currency. So it will be there. You can see that maybe in the future iterations, there'll be the Instagrams of the future or TikToks of the future, where there will be this form of social proofing and social signaling in them representing their identity, their self, through their wallet and their profile. So, and this direct interfacing is just the key in moving to a Web3 financial infrastructure.
Yeah, that's a really interesting anchor thought, that notion of social currency and the wallet for social currency. Like, that's a really interesting thought on that one. Ikuma, my next question is for you. And my question is, how are cryptocurrencies making it possible to build a fully functioning economy inside the metaverse?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, no problem. The question was, how are cryptocurrencies making it possible to build a fully functioning economy inside the metaverse?
Yeah, so the metaverse is actually consisted in the cryptocurrency, the blockchain world and crypto world, and there are a lot of metaverse out there for sure. And each economy, of course, has its cryptocurrencies that can be utilized in the system. Like, for example, our project is called Octoburst, and they have the token called AKB token, which is a governance token. So it's not a security, but it's by having it, you'll have the right to vote whichever the game economy economy is going to be. So we have the hyper casual games, and all users who have the governance token can have a vote whether which kind of the genre of the games will be produced in the next future. So that aspect is used in the cryptocurrency as well. And of course, there's another token called utility token, AKIR token. So that is being used as to boost up the in-game experiences. So you have that AKIR as some of the currency to purchase the items to boost up the games. So like those cryptocurrencies are formulated in a way that you'll have your own fan services community members who are believing in the metaverse or the GameFi sections. That's not only in the metaverse, but also in other projects as well that consists of cryptocurrencies. So it is something similar to the federal or like government issued government issued fiat currencies, but it has the function where you can utilize that token in that ecosystem that the project has created in economics. And by having the using the blockchain technology or by using the cryptocurrency, it is borderless, it's frictionless, and people all over the world can purchase or hold those tokens wherever they are. So it is drastically the tokens that can be interoperability. It has the interoperability and it has the function to anywhere. It can be used in the economy where those cryptocurrencies are used within that platform. So that's why the cryptocurrency plays an important role in the metaverse.
Amazing. Just to sort of, I don't mean to belabor the point, but you mentioned sort of like this notion of it doesn't have, you don't have geographic boundaries or you don't have those perhaps more physical parameters, but you also mentioned that the cryptocurrencies support several metaverses, and within those metaverses they can be used. Do you think that those boundaries are perhaps those virtual boundaries are real limitations currently? Do you feel that there's something to be said about that?
Yeah, so if the platform only allows one single currency, then I mean that is just in the extent of it's the same way that the current universes are formed. But essentially, when the tokens are being used to if the platform allows the any tokens to be used in that platform itself, then it has a lot of meanings to it. And of course, there are a lot of services where you can swap the tokens with any of the, if it's ERC20, there's thousands or down to thousands of tokens that can be converted into by using these decentralized platforms. So in a way, you could have the token where you believe in or where you think the economy is working, and having to transact into any of the tokens that you actually need to use within that platform. It's the cryptocurrency is the right way because fiat currency, there's a lot of restriction you need to do overseas. You need to use the SWIFT. You need to use all these the banks that actually supports that tokens. But literally, if the token is in the same protocol, then you'll be able to swap into any of the tokens out there.
Yeah, so in reality, no limitation in that regard, huh?
That's right.
Super interesting. Okay, I was curious. We haven't really touched on the topic yet, but I'm curious to know what you think, just to change the vantage point slightly, on how, Ikuma, this is for you again. How can the blockchain empower creators?
Yeah, so by having like its own crypto wallets, the creators can originate their own arts or game items and distribute it to peer-to-peer using a decentralized platform. So that way, revenue will be directly forwarded to the seller or distributor without being subtracted by a middleman or the middle guy. So the idea of like using blockchain for entertainment is very phenomenal, as it protects the copyrights and gives the right incentive rewards for those who have actually created. But until now, it has been majorly consumed by a publisher or middleman for all distributions. But the concept has gradually changed as more and more creators for videos or clips have moved to platforms such as like YouTube or TikTok. And YouTube is a Web 2.0 platform, but the idea of having the stream by yourselves without using any platform, will soon be mainstream in the creator platform. So.
Amazing, and super, super interesting. I guess by that nature and by extension, we talk about creators. You mentioned brands and sort of publishers and organizations, who are many of which are sort of watching us today. I would be keen to understand what your recommendations might be for brands or organizations who want to start getting involved with the blockchain and the metaverse. And Azmi, I might start with you for that question, and I'll ask you the same question as well, Ikuma.
Sure, yeah. So I think there are many ways in which you can get into the mix, so to speak. So, but I think one of the more obvious ways is as a brand, you can, for example, release a limited edition. If you're talking about NFTs, can release a limited edition NFT to mark an anniversary or milestone. And then, for example, you tie it contractually on the smart contract to a physical product that will be delivered together with the limited edition NFT. And the interesting part of this is that this particular NFT can be openly bought and sold. So let's say you collaborate with an let's say up and coming artist for this anniversary milestone limited edition product, right? And then in the future, let's say, for example, the artist becomes famous and there's increased demand for the artist's works. And the NFTs is one of the works, limited edition as well. So the interesting thing about NFTs is that they can have royalties embedded into the smart contract. It can be 5 to 10%, which presents an example of future revenue streams, where in future it gets bought and sold. And another example, we can also talk about ticketing. So imagine, let's say, you have an historic FIFA World Cup ticket in the form of an NFT together with the analog ticket as well. And in the future, there might be use case in which these tickets will be future collectible items, and then collectors will be trying to look for it, hunt it down, and try to get it as part of their collection. And it somewhat becomes something that can be traded and bought and sold as well. And of course, with that, there comes the royalties that come with it, which not just the brands, but also with the associated artists that they worked with, they can all benefit from it. Yeah, so these are some of the ideas, that they can have with regards to, let's say, NFT specific.
Amazing. Ikuma, just the same question for you. So just to repeat, if you have any recommendations for brands and organizations who want to start getting involved with the blockchain and the metaverse, who perhaps don't have, that depth of knowledge that you, of course, both have, what would you advise to them?
I mean, my advice would be kind of simple, get your hands dirty, right? You would never realize unless you have actually tried yourself. Do a small concept to see the potentiality of this technology. You will actually never figure out unless you try it. And for the brands, I believe there's a huge advantage of using the blockchain. Authenticity is one of them. Authenticity can be secured if brands mint tokens to verify the authenticity, genuine of each goods. And brands can actually verify their own wallets and make any transaction whenever the goods are being purchased, and either encrypt the QR codes or anything like that on a tag or anywhere else. So you can prove that the item is real or fake by scanning having your iPhone or Android to scan the QR code. By having to make the transaction on the date of purchase, it will actually have another value factor, to record and remember the date was a celebration to purchase those goods. You give it to your loved ones by purchasing them, high brands like Hermes or something, Louis Vuitton, and you give it to your wife, and you transact on a blockchain. You will have that authenticity and have that celebration time record, and you can figure out, oh hey, your husband gave you a brand bag at XX day, right? So that becomes another value as well. So those who are looking at high brands, please use my idea. And
that's a cool idea, man.
Yeah. And also, it can have its own NFTs, for core members to have exclusive event invites or early access to, limited edition items. I've seen community building Basie, Apes, or Azuki. NFTs can have community features that will have another sales line and give customer satisfaction by just holding it itself. So it will have a customer loyalty, and I believe there's a huge synergy between the blockchain and the brand companies.
Yeah, amazing. You mentioned just the simple notion of getting started. I was actually, as you were both speaking, I was curious to know, how did you both get started in the space? Like, what was your first foray into the wonderful world of Web3?
Yeah, I have to start. I started my journey in 2015. Actually, I was a banker that time, and I was actually appointed by the group CEO to look at the new disruptive technologies. And I was looking at like artificial intelligence, natural language processing, all these technologies out there that might impact the financial services in the future. Mm-hmm. And of course, it came across the blockchain and cryptocurrency, and I thought this decentralization is something very innovative. It's mind blowing. So I might just start investigate on it. I was actually in a pool in San Francisco. I was looking at Coinbase that time, and the price of the Bitcoin was around $200, I believe, and Ethereum was 80 cents. So I said, why not? I just put $100 in each, and and I started holding that, and that's where I got hooked. Within I think it was 2 months or 3 months, it was like 5x, 10x. It was huge for a financial institution. I mean, you don't get like 500% return in that short period, for sure.
Yeah, of course.
So that's how I realized the potentiality in this field.
Before I ask you the same question, Azmi, just to belabor that point a little bit with you, Ikuma, if you don't mind. You mentioned it was just sort of a mandate that was set to you by management. Hey, Ikuma, can you look into this space? We think there's something there, but we can't quite wrap our heads around it. Just for brands and organizations watching now, what do you think is necessary for readiness or organizational readiness? Do you think it's a bit of a risk-taking attitude that we need to take to it, or perhaps it's just, I was just curious to know from your own experience what you think, what's necessary for that appetite and for that to take hold in a business?
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of brands are actually going into this NFT spaces for sure, like Prada, Gucci, Adidas. They're all issuing NFTs. Digital sneakers are pretty perfect, right, for this stage. The risk taking, I don't think there's much of risk taking. There's no cost actually, in order to put this on a blockchain or mint NFTs itself. So I don't see any of the risk. It's just from Web3, enthusiasts, we just admire how they were doing it. It just makes us wonder what they are thinking and what they're trying to do to those users who actually host those NFTs.
Amazing. And as me, the same question for you. How did it all start for you? What was that journey like? Okay.
So interesting question. Actually, I heard about it, and actually some of my friends were mining Bitcoin in university, using university electricity. But that was way early on. But I found it to be like something that is a bit esoteric. Like it's somewhat of a small little hobby, I guess. So I was like, okay. But I didn't pay much attention to it. But I think early 2017, the same friend, he was telling me, those Bitcoins I mined years ago, they're worth something, but then he lost his private key. He lost his laptop. Yeah. So I was like, okay. So I started investigating into it. And then at that point of time, I think there was a lot of focus on the technology bit, so the learning curve was a bit difficult. But then I was same as Ikuma. I was like, okay, let me just go on Coinbase, just buy, just a few Bitcoin, some ETH, and then just forget about it. But then after a while, when you see the returns, you're like, okay, there's something there. So I wanted to understand it a bit more. So I went on this rabbit hole where, I think at that point of time, you just start joining the Telegram groups, the Discords, talking to anonymous people. But the interesting part about this anonymous people, right, is that you don't really get to see or know them, but you get to exchange ideas. So the strength of that is in the ideas and how they, communicate the ideas on what the blockchain represents, what Bitcoin represents. And then I sort of got it. So it's okay, self-custody, not your keys, not your crypto, decentralization. Okay, there's something there. But then, of course, the mania happened, right? The 20 December 2017 happened, and then there were a lot of experiments that happened. So when I see it on the bigger picture, it's somewhat, I get it in the sense that it's still a fairly new industry. So you have to have a lot of this, I call it iterative experiments. So I think Ikuma touched on it as well in terms of even brands as well, right? You gotta have that exploratory mindset in the sense that there's not much of a loss or cost in terms, for example, of minting an NFT. But then it'd be good for you to think about how to explore. And so my journey was also I explored everything that was to be. There was a lot of different iterations. I think there was also STO, security, tokens, and all that early on. And yeah, it evolved. So as the industry evolved, my perception of it also evolved. But then the roots of, how to say, the philosophy of it still remains in a sense where, okay, this idea of decentralization, self-sovereign or self-custody is actually a key part of my understanding of crypto and the blockchain. Yeah.
Amazing. Just, I guess, one final remark. I obviously can sense both your enthusiasm, and you've obviously dedicated a lot of time and energy into the space. I'd like for folks at home to also share that enthusiasm, and as a result, I want to ask the question: what remark would you make to share what makes you excited about this space and blockchain tech today? What could we tell our audience? Ikuma, I'll ask you that question first.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I'm in this industry for 7 years now, I believe. But every day is just a learning. There's a lot of products, there's a lot of news that's coming up everywhere, and it's impossible for me to catch everything in a nice topic. So I need to jot down where I will be shifting or where I'll be focusing on. So, if you're looking for somewhere that really requires you to be, very in front, and to, if you want to learn more technology, if you want to see more impacts, whatever that's making the government fear or whatever that's making a news article, this is the industry that you have to be in, because your knowledge is actually creating the path or the regulation itself, because there's no regulation to it. I mean, you just need to, all the regulators or the government actually needs to put the current existing regulations on top of it in order for them to understand, or in order for them to prohibit doing so. So, we as enthusiasts or the ones who are doing the business here, we need to make our voice right, and we need to make our products right, and we need to make the regulation right, so that this will not be hidden, or it will not it will not be the situation where it get buried, right? So
yeah, I think that's a nice one, Ikuma. Thank you for that. Asmi, just a final remark from you. I'm curious to know.
Okay, so cool. I got 2 points. I have 2
Go
points.
for it.
So one is probably some numbers. So I read recently, I think the Global Macro Investor, they did a study. So they took the first 5 million internet users, and they mapped it with the first 5 million blockchain/crypto users. And they realized that the number is outpacing by a 2 times differential growth difference. And they use a function called Metcalfe's law. I'm not going to go so technical on that. You can read it in your own free time. So, but the basis of that is that, yes, it's growing exponentially. Of course, there are, a lot of experiments along the way, because we are at the forefront of it. So if you want to be at the forefront of it, you want something exciting, you want to explore, but the thing is that, don't be afraid to fail, because that's the process of iteration. So broadly, just philosophically, in philosophy, the internet right now, you can call it the somewhat unlimited transfer of knowledge, right? Web 2. But I think Web 3, the focus is the unlimited transfer of value. So I think that's something exciting, and something which a lot of companies, new companies, startups, founders, even enthusiasts are exploring. Like Kuma said, a week in blockchain/crypto is like probably a year in the real world. So it's quite interesting if you like that kind of base as well. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you both so much for all your insights and for your time. I think that's actually all the time we've got. So thank you again, and I hope you have a lovely day. I'm not sure what time it is over there, morning, afternoon, evening, but thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Amazing.
Bye.
So we're going to move over to our next panel, and Emma, actually, are you there?
I'm here. Hi, Tobias. Yeah, I was paying close attention. Really interesting chat, so thank you both again for your time. We are actually at our final panel. Can't believe we already are there, and this one's actually probably both of our favorites. So let's get started and explore the metaverse.
Welcome to the Building a Better Internet panel. This lineup of speakers represents folks who are using Web3 to make a difference in the natural world and society as well. Let's show them some love. And if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat.
Some grass.
Nice.
Finally a meadow that I can enjoy without hay fever.
Yeah, some nice fresh air, actually. It's nice, some green grass instead of green room.
Love it. In this panel, actually, hi folks, are you there? Can you hear me? Are you all there with me? Amazing. Thanks so much for joining us. I'll do a brief introduction, if that's all right with you. So in this panel, folks at home, we're joined by Ricky Kedge, multi-Grammy Award winner and US Billboard #1 artist, Danny Cho, Chief Strategy Officer at Marvelous, and Ariane Lee, co-founder at Meta Games. They'll be sharing their vision around doing good using technology and promoting values around sustainability and learning. All of you, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us. So
thank you for having us.
Amazing. I'm gonna get started. I'm just gonna kick things off with a brief round of intros and thoughts on how the metaverse can offer a new potential to create awareness around sustainability and doing good. So sort of a bit of a flash round to kind of kick things off, if that's all right with you all. So maybe Danny, maybe we could start with you. Is that all right?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm CSO at Marvelous. My name is Danny. Marvelous is a metaverse builder. We have a passion for fun, immersive platforms that are targeted at younger generations and benefiting education. So we're specifically interested in building products that unleash creativity of children. And our mission is to ensure that the next version of the internet is designed with the well-being of children in mind. So that's a quick intro for you. We're based in Korea, and so lovely to be here with everyone.
Amazing. Thank you, Danny. Ariane, may I ask you the same question? Is that all right? Oh, sorry, Ariane, I can't hear you. I'm not sure if you're on mute, maybe, potentially.
Yep.
There we go. There you are.
So I'm Ariane. I'm based in Hong Kong, and then we're building Super Kids, which is a game which has augmented reality and full body tracking so that kids can be learning and moving at the same time. But what is unique about our game is that we also have a focus of mindfulness.
Amazing. Thank you, Ariane. And Ricky, same question for you. Brief intro and any thoughts on how the metaverse can offer a new potential to create awareness and sustainability around and doing good?
So, hello everyone, I'm Ricky, and I'm a musician and an environmentalist, and the only kind of music that I make is about sustainability and about positive social impact, and I'm also a Goodwill Ambassador with the United Nations. So, to be honest, I do not know, I'm not an expert on the metaverse, but all that I know is that the metaverse is new, and there can be tremendous amounts of creative freedom about how it evolves, and obviously, the possibilities are endless, and the metaverse will eventually be what we want it to be and what we hope it to be. And we always talk about the systems around us pushing us down when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to the environment, when it comes to social impact, because we've built all these systems around us that has moved the human species in the wrong direction. So here is a worldwide system that is developing from the ground up. So we have no excuse to ensure that we have sustainability at its core and positivity at its core. So that's what I'm hoping that the metaverse develops into.
I mean, I feel galvanized already from that statement.
Wonderful. Well, it's really nice to have you all here today. And just a reminder to the audience again, you know the drill. You can leave comments and questions in the desktop chat, and we'll get to it at the end of the panel. But really interested to hear. I think there's a lot about kind of the future and responsibility and children, and we're going to have, I hope, a very rich conversation. So I think let's just start with you, Ariane, and anyone else also feel free to jump in after. But in your view, how can the metaverse really bring positivity to children? And, you know, just at a high level, but also maybe specifically through what you're working on as well.
So we think that parents nowadays are quite open but cautious about metaverse for kids. And we think that it is a problem that companies are trying to address, but companies at the same time have this obligation to be making money. So what we're trying to do is strike a balance there and actually have the safety of kids in our forefront. And if what we want to do is to utilize the metaverse, not only to learn, but also at the same time make them move, because obesity is such a problem right now. And that is such a global problem. And there is like 1 in 5 kids, they do not get enough exercise these days. That's talking about like an hour or so, like a week. And so we think that with a metaverse that can bring so much good in like making it fun at the same time. But also, let's say, like we all know cyberbullying or any form of bullying is such an issue right now. So if we can actually use the metaverse, like Danny is building one. So if we can actually use the metaverse to actually simulate situations for kids to practice how to handle that, because when you're taught is very different from getting practice. So we reckon that being in an immersive environment, it has great potential in helping kids to practice that.
Yeah, amazing. That stat is staggering. That 1 in 5, an hour a week only. That's staggering. Danny, I was just following on from the focus on kids in particular. It sounds like you're building your metaverse of your own. The question actually is, how in what ways do you think the metaverse can foster creativity among children? I imagine the immersive experience is an incredible sort of tool that we can leverage. I thought I would ask you that question.
Yes, thank you for that. And again, as with Ariane's product and what she's building with her team with Meta Games, there's so many ways that children can engage with these metaverse platforms. At the end of the day, I think children don't really care for concepts like the metaverse or anything high-minded like that. They just want to be in a safe and positive environment where they can socialize and really learn. Our product specifically, well, if you look at platforms these days like Minecraft or Roblox, I think these products have taken a world building sandbox type of approach and really succeeded there. Ariane, I think, is doing some amazing things with going in a more like active direction, making sure with body tracking. I think that's amazing. For us, we're more in the former camp, but in that way, I think the metaverse is leading the way for this type of creator-driven or maker kind of focused education. Mm-hmm. Basically giving kids access to tools that empower them to build things on their own, but now you're not really limited by physical boundaries, right? They can, these products can really deliver amazing play and learning opportunities. That's the main goal for us. But the additional layer for us, because we're building in more of a education-focused product, is that we need to make sure these tools have productive learning outcomes for them as well. And yes, there is a common misconception among parents that the metaverse is maybe just a fancy way of promoting games and entertainment, but we want to show that even gamification, when applied in the right ways, is a very powerful tool for promoting education. So I'm just really glad that these types of trends are and collaborators and builders alike are coming together in the metaverse to seek out ways we can promote good. And specifically, everyone's doing that in their respective ways. I'd love to hear about Ricky's contributions as well. But yes, I am focusing most on bringing out that creativity among children while creating a metaverse environment that's safe and positive.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's great, and love to kind of dig into that a bit deeper in the latter part of our conversation. But yeah, on to Ricky, because I think creativity is a great segue into what you do as a musician, and just sort of what you stand for. You mentioned not doing anything besides sustainability when you are singing and making music. So when it comes to values specifically, what are your goals in terms of what you as an individual or what we as a collective might want to transmit in terms of doing good when we're thinking about the metaverse and we're thinking about these new modes and platforms for communication and sharing?
So I guess when it comes to the metaverse, I mean that it's a very creative tool for bringing about partnerships. It's a very creative tool for understanding the problems with our planet and making people realize about about the solutions that we have. I believe that, with all the problems that we face on our planet, whether it is, climate change, whether it is, species extinction, deforestation, air pollution, plastics pollution, so many issues. The biggest threat to us is the constant thought that somebody else will make a difference, because we're always waiting for governments, for intergovernmental bodies and corporations to make a difference, when the truth is that the thing which we need most is behavioral change. And I believe that, that the metaverse can be a very powerful tool for all of us to bring about behavioral change, because it's not that all of us are evil people and we don't want to change our ways and we don't want to, bring about the small, tiny incremental changes within our own lives. But it's just that we haven't empowered ourselves as individuals to believe that the tiny incremental changes that we can bring about in our own lives can actually make a difference. Like if I stop using plastics, then what difference is it going to make in the world? Or if I reduce my dependence on fossil fuels, what difference is that going to make in this world? So I believe that even for brands also to lead from the front and to showcase how their products are sustainably sourced and produced in a more sustainable fashion through the metaverse could be a really, really important tool to actually get people to make the right choices. Another example that I can give you of using technology, not necessarily the metaverse, is that there is this song about climate change that we perform at all our concerts. And we did a series of concerts where what we did was that we used augmented reality, where we encouraged all our audiences to pick up their cell phones and watch the concert. So the user experience is that they would watch the concert through the lens of their camera, and they would see in the next couple of years as to how much we would go underwater, how much we would submerge if we do not make any changes within our own lives, and climate change is allowed to go on, unchecked. So, and that made a huge difference. People started making commitments within their own lives because it reached their hearts and souls, and that's what art does. That's what the metaverse does. And that's what an immersive media can actually help bring about.
That's incredibly profound, Ricky. Thank you so much for that. Ariane, I think we spoke a little bit about what you do with meta games, but I'd like to focus in particular on, so you talked a bit about teaching kids skills for the future, skills like collaboration, resilience. I'd love to sort of learn a bit more about how you go about doing that, or how the metaverse can facilitate that.
So we believe in an immersive environment, we can actually expose the kids to the things that we don't want them to be exposed to for the first time in real life. So let's say bullying, or let's say echoing what Ricky was saying, right? Let's say kids nowadays, they cannot imagine like what is the impact of their action. So that is something that we actually plan to do ourselves within our game. So let's say even nowadays with parents not being able to spend so much time with their kids, you'll be really surprised. Apparently in the States, right? Parents manage to only spend about 2 or 3 hours a week with their kid. So what we want to do is to utilize our game and then actually teach them those things. And it includes all those things, not just resilience, but also how to very simply be a better person. And we believe that within our game flow is built in such that they will learn those tips of how to concentrate better, how to stay more calm, how to be more gratifying. So we want them to have all these things. So as they grow up, when they're in those situations, then they'll be able to actually utilize those skills. So in a Buddhist term, we call it you're planting a seed. So we just hope that the seed will flourish at the right time.
Amazing.
Yeah, I love that analogy as well. I think there's bigger implications for something like that as well. And also maybe a good segue into what I'm going to ask Danny, just on the topic of plants, agriculture, sustainability. You know, you also are having kind of the digital twin platform, MetaFarm, and we'd love to hear a little bit more about what that is and also how it promotes sustainability and kind of awareness and things like that within the agricultural industry.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. So as a metaverse builder, our main focus right now, we're trying to focus on a couple of verticals, but one of them, in addition to the children's education product, which is more of a, I guess what you would call an immersive education game platform. We're also building a product called MetaFarm. It's just, I guess it falls under the umbrella of smart farming in general, which is the way of managing farms using modern kind of, information technology, communication tools to optimize crop production for farmers and the macro scale. Metaverse, I think, has become the additional kind of technology under this umbrella of methods to expedite this process. Because what a digital twin is, it's basically, it's a form of a metaverse that is real-time digital copy of the real world. So our platform, as an extension of that, it allows for prediction, optimization, monitoring of crop production yields. At the end of the day, we want to make sure it leads to increased quantity and quality of products while optimizing, I guess, the human labor required. So products like MetaFarm, along with smart farming methods at large, I think are key to developing sustainable agriculture. And we're just excited that the metaverse has these kinds of applications, as well as, this technology, or I guess metaverse isn't a technology. It's more just maybe the next version as we head into the next version of the internet. But it has the potential to shake up so many different industries. And I think in doing so in a sustainable way is the beauty of it.
Amazing, Danny. Ricky, I'd love to direct my next question to you, actually. And you mentioned already a little bit about here we have this opportunity. Now it's up to us to shape it as we see fit and for the better, for the good of mankind and for the world. And I imagine you mentioned a few examples of how you use music to inspire social change and sustainable living. And I guess I'd love to ask you how you think brands and organizations who want to be responsible in the metaverse and Web3, what you have as recommendations, advice in that regard.
So I've always believed that when it comes to bringing about behavioral change, you can showcase a ton of scientific data, which is really important. But you can showcase a ton of scientific data. You can showcase analytics. You can make 1,000 speeches, but that may not have any difference in people's lives. But what could actually bring about difference is that if artists and if communicators and if immersive mediums actually, touch people in their hearts and souls, so that they would actually, and speak to them emotionally, so that they would bring about, behavioral change and understand what is important. So I believe that when it comes to brands, as I'd mentioned, that that it's a perfect time for brands to actually lead from the front and showcase how their products are sustainably sourced, sustainably produced using the metaverse. And the metaverse can also be a really powerful marketing tool, which brands can harness by using these beautiful audiovisual elements to engage with consumers by giving them cues to make more sustainable choices. I can give an example for this. Just a few days back, I was talking to this chip manufacturer, sort of like a startup in India, and they make snacking chips. And they were telling me that about how they're finding it so difficult to move away from plastic. Because they figured out another packaging system which is using glass bottles, but they said that that would be too expensive for the consumer, and they are not able to communicate to the consumer that if you pay a little bit more, you're more responsible to the planet, and you can use these glass bottles rather than these plastic bags that they are selling their chips in, because they need to make sure the chips are crisp. So the metaverse could be such a beautiful way for these brands to explain to people about the advantages of actually making these more sustainable choices, so that brands also can make the right decisions. And of course, I believe that it can open a lot of open and transparent communications between brands and the consumers in the way that I just mentioned, which can be direct interaction with the consumers rather than through an advertising medium.
Amazing.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Ricky. The next question, I guess it's really for everybody, but maybe specifically to Danny and Ariane. What would you say to skeptics or those who are saying that kids need to spend less time in front of a screen or more time outside? Both from your unique perspectives, it would be great to understand. What do you say to them, and how do you respond to that?
Danny, I think Ariane is suggesting.
Muted, or somebody's.
So, I mean, I'm a parent myself. I have all these concerns about screen time as well. So, what we try to do is that has become kind of our motto. If you cannot fight it, then you try and embrace it.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, okay, no screen time, no metaverse, because they hear about it and they're curious. So you cannot just stop them from being exposed to it, but how we expose it to them and then what do we expose them to is the thing we have to consider. Mm-hmm. And that's why, having thought about it so much, then that's why we thought, the more we thought about it, the more we know that we bear such a responsibility in making somewhere which is positive for kids and not just doing it just for profit. And I think the thing is, we're not asking kids to actually spend hours on end on our game. We actually will allow parents to actually set the limit. And ours is actually also implementing education and also exercise. So let's say, like, we think very practically as a parent. Sometimes you're just so tired, you're home, and then you want your kid to just like give you some time to breathe. So we just hope that, okay, for that 20 minutes, they will let their kid play our game, and then they will learn something positive. And also, what is unique, right, is that our game is not built on PC. Our game is actually built on mobile. So anywhere in the world, whoever can afford just a mobile, they can actually use our game. It then creates a more equitable platform for people to be exposed to all these great learning games and tools. Sorry, it took so long. Danny, your turn.
That's all right.
It's great. We love this. Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Yeah, no, thank you, Ariane. I actually think you hit it on the nail, and just want to echo what you said. And as a parent, speaking as a parent yourself, I think it's very great to have parents like yourself leading the way. Really, it really takes pioneers and early adopters to push it forward, because I guess in a way, I kind of understand the skepticism as well. I'm not a parent myself, but the internet, as it currently stands, even with all the guidelines and all of the safety nets and the guardrails, is still a very dangerous place if untethered, and there aren't, there isn't a good protocol and guidance for children. So it makes sense, the skepticism, and it can be very healthy actually, because it pushes companies like us, companies like Metagames and Marverse to really puts the onus on us to really show that our platforms can be diverse and inclusive. And so I guess in short, yes, it's okay to be skeptical. Let us show you how, because the way that we as children grew up and learned is fundamentally different from how just one generation below is growing up to what they're used to. These kinds of interactions on Roblox or other platforms that comprise the metaverse is normal for these children. So we also have to understand and exercise our empathy to realize, okay, this generation that are growing up today, it's different, and it's inevitable that the products and and learning mechanisms are going to shift fundamentally as well, and we're taking steps to do that, hopefully in a deliberate way, so that environment can be safe and positive.
Absolutely.
Thank
you so much, for those thoughtful responses. I think actually that was the last question that we had time for today. This has already been so enriching and so wonderful. So thank you all for entertaining our questions. And it was really a pleasure to welcome you all to the Meta Festival and learn more about the wonderful work that you're all doing in the metaverse with education, agriculture, sustainability, and environmental purposes. And Ricky, congratulations on also using music to promote social change. We love seeing that. So thank you all very much. And have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, Tobias, I think we are actually at the end of our APAC program for the Meta Festival 2022 today. It was a great lineup. It was so much fun. Can't believe it.
Where'd the time go?
I don't know. Just evaporated before our eyes.
All right, folks, for you joining at home, thank you for joining us for the first 24-hour festival in the metaverse. We'll now be moving to Europe for another amazing live stage with speakers including Ready Player Me, Hape, The Fabricant, Coca-Cola, Burberry, DressX, and many more. The live stage will be back in 3 hours, starting at 2 p.m. CEST. Until then, feel free to discover the different areas of the Metapolis, where you will learn from digital creatives, thought leaders, and brands.
Yeah, and we also have a really fun little extra for you all. We have a NFT gallery, and you can sort of get in there and do some fun things, dance in the boiler room, I won't spoil that, and explore the playground fun that we have in store for you. So thank you, Tobias, for being a lovely co-host, and thank you all for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, likewise, Emma. Cheers, everyone.
Faded into an ocean, blue wine breaking. Unless we forget all of our regrets, I'm reading with you. I deeply do exalt you, darling, I do. I should remain, you compensate, but I can't repay with love. Never say never, I'm down forever. It's just a shame because there's something about you. No, oh, there's something about you. No. Hey, baby, I really do should tell you. Hey, baby, I really do should tell you. But you're so complicated. You're too complicated. You're so complicated. You're too complicated. You're so complicated. You're too complicated. It's always the wrong thing that makes us feel right. Undressing, full moons and late nights. And if we accept each other for less, I'm riding with you. I deeply do exalt you. You know that I do. I should remain, you compensate, but I can't repay with love. Never say never, I'm down forever. It's just a shame because there's something about you. No, oh, there's something about you. Hey, baby, I really do should tell you. Hey, baby, I really do OT. I've been in and out of city on the low key. I've been working overtime, I've been OT. I love when you hype me, tell them all about me. When you come around, never clown, never doubt me. I'm a little spicy, hatchy, talk to me nicely. Yeah, when you come around, it don't matter how I do it, my baby gon' love me. I ain't never gotta prove it, my baby gon' love me. It don't matter what I do, my baby gon' love me. I ain't never gotta prove it, my baby gon' love me. He gon' love me. You know me in and out the city on a low key. He buy me this, buy me that, buy me everything. He buy me this, he buy me that. Everything, I ain't never gotta ask. I love when you hype me, tell them all about me. When you come around, never clown, never doubt me. I'm a little spicy, hatchy, talk to me nicely. Yeah, when you come around, it don't matter how I do it, my baby gon' love me. I ain't never gotta prove it, my baby gon' love me. It don't matter what I do, my baby gon' love me. I ain't never gotta prove it, my baby gon' love me. He gon' love me.
I can give her this, and I can give her that. I can give her the world, she don't even gotta ask. I give her all she wants and all the love she needs. I give her everything she deserves, she's a queen. I can give her this, and I can give her that. I can give her the world, she don't even gotta ask. I give her all she wants and all the love she needs. I give her everything she deserves, she's a queen. I can give her this, and I can give her that. I can give her the world, she don't even gotta ask. I give her all she wants and all the love she needs. I give her everything she deserves, she's a queen. I can give her this, and I can give her that. I can give her the world, she don't even gotta ask. I give her all she wants and all the love she needs. I give her everything she deserves, she's a queen.
When I met you last night, baby, and you let me roll the dice. You said I'd be your lucky lady. I hit those numbers all night. I can't lose when I'm around you. Oh, I can't lose now. I found you, yeah.
I've walked through the valleys of the wilderness in time, only to find out that you have love in places I can't describe. Yeah. I need you. It's the sunrise. I just wanted to let you know I love you. Don't ever let go, 'cause the sun don't shine when you're not around mine. And I could never be without you. Singing the sun don't shine, the sun don't shine, the sun don't shine, the sun don't shine without you, without you. Through all the space and time, your love is mine. But the sun don't shine without you, without you. When I saw you rise the other day, I felt my worries just seem to melt away into you.